All right, ready to go? Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission for Thursday, December 6th. In attendance are regular members DeFrancisco, May, Sienna, and Dulac. Our first order of business is minutes, the minutes from November 29th. I'd like to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November 29th, 2018.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes 4-0. Before we get started, just want to remind everybody that we have a survey that was posted out as part of the plan of conservation and development. We've had a pretty good response, I think close to 700 people.
Over 800 now.
Over 800, which we anticipate about 600. That's usually where it goes with our population. But if you haven't taken the survey yet, there's cards on the back table, little business cards that has the link and the QR code. We would really appreciate it if you take that. Anybody watching on Facebook or on TV, you could find the link on our North Branford homepage as well. I think it's all over Facebook and some other social media as well. If you could find that, appreciate it. If you would take that and put in a response, that'd be great. Our first order of business is a public hearing, application 2018-17. For that application, our committee member, DeFrancisco, is going to abstain because he is part of this application. So
And
thank you.
actually fully recuse himself.
Well, yeah, fully
right.
recuse yourself.
Yeah.
So, all right, perfect. So, Ron, if you would, or Trish, if you would like to read the public notice.
All right, this is a legal notice for the North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 6, 2018, at the North Branford Town Hall, 909 Foxton Road, North Branford, Connecticut, to consider the following. Application 2018-17, special use permit request under section 23.1, Schedule A, line A-6.3 for a farm brewery use at 418 Forest Road, residential zone R40. Owner J. DeFrancisco and Son, Inc. Applicant Stewards of the Land Brewery, LLC. At this hearing, all interested persons may appear and be heard, and written communications, is that a omen? Good or bad? Will be received. Copies of the proposals are on file for public inspection in the Town Hall Planning Department.
And seated for this public hearings, regular members, May, Sienna, and Dulac. For those that haven't been to a public hearing before, we're going to let the applicant go through the whole application, the site, and provide details on what is included in that. There might be some conversation between committee members and the applicant. And then at that time, we will, after that, we'll have some information from other commissions and referrals from the other commissions, boards, and then we will open up for public comment. So it's all yours.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Sylvia Rutkowska. I'm obviously here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me tonight is Dave Napis, who's standing to my right. We also have Rob Feliciano, who is the designer and builder of the potential project. And obviously, as you know, Alex DeFrancisco is hanging out in the back of the room if there's any questions strictly with regard to the technical brewing aspect of it. And then we also have various members of the farm here as well, should any questions or opportunity for that, should that arise. Before I get into some of the technical aspects of this, I did want to just formally introduce myself a little bit and tell you a little bit about myself, since we haven't got a chance to meet with all of you. Again, my name is Sylvia Rutkowska. I'm with a firm called DeZallo, Pickett & Allen in Middletown and Old Saybrook. I typically represent applicants and all various individuals in the Middlesex and New London area. So I'm somewhat new to this particular commission in the New Haven jurisdiction. But I do also represent a series of planning and zoning commissions, zoning boards, zoning enforcement officers, so I'm very familiar with what it feels like to be in your shoes, and I also personally serve as the citation hearing officer in Middletown. So that just tells you a little bit about myself. One logistical item or housekeeping item that I did want to review with you is this application was submitted a little while ago, but there's been some substantial revisions to it. So if you wouldn't mind, I just want to make sure that what you have before you is the applicable documentation.
Yeah, Carrie just passed those out. So we have the packages that you provided and also the revised site plans.
Okay. So like on the very front of your packet is a table of contents. This also has an amended statement of use, which again has been substantially revised, so you can essentially throw out the last one. And any plan sets that you've had from before are also outdated. There's been a significant amount of revisions and so forth. And as you can tell, I try to make this as easy as possible for you as to what's included in your packet. I do have one additional revision to just the table of contents, and that's with respect to item number 10. Item number 10 is a list of supporters and individual letters. The individual, I have noted there that there are 22 letters. Just today, I was also handed another 56 letters, and Carrie has those. They're not part of your packet because I didn't have an opportunity to make copies, but they will be part of your record. And as Carrie mentioned, there's going to be a series, or there has been a series of reviews involved in this particular project. We have had a significant amount of meetings and discussions with Carrie and all of the relevant players in this, including local, state, and town officials. And a lot of what you're going to see here in the revisions that we've made have been responsive to that and ways to accommodate some of the town's concerns and find mutual interest within the projects. We believe that this project is very much something that provides a mutual benefit for the town. So we're very much interested in finding a way to make it work if there's some aspect of it that isn't or that doesn't. So what I'll go through with you is, well, let me give you a little bit of an explanation about this particular application, if you wouldn't mind. So this particular application, as you know, is an application for a special use permit for a farm brewery. It's been a relatively recent revision to your regulations, and I believe we're the first folks up to bat on this particular item. This application is specifically looking to fulfill your plan of conservation and development and your regulations in the sense that it is supporting and preserving agriculture and farms and trying to figure out a way to boost the economic development of the town while supporting farms. This particular project has some additional bonuses with regard to that. One is that it is restoring a historic feature of the town as a town tavern that uses locally grown ingredients and crops right from the farm, and also restoring a 1800s property. What I'll show you here is I've got a little picture to my right, which is a Google Earth shot of what the current farmhouse looks like. As you can see, you can tell it's old, and it definitely needs some upkeep. There were significant trees in the front that blocked and obscured it. Not necessarily the prettiest location in the town thus far. But what we're looking to do is promote the farm and agriculture in the town, help with economic growth, and restore a building that I think has a significant value in its restored state. So let me go through some of the plans that we have, and everything that you have I've got up here as well. So if there is anything that you have specific questions about, I can go ahead and flip to that page and we can talk about it specifically. And I do have some additional colored photos and some perspectives that help you visualize what this project could look like. So the first set that we're going to go through is the actual property survey. What we've got here, and I'll note that the property application is 418 Forest Road. Now, 418 Forest Road is only one of the two lots that is a part of this project. Your regulations require that a farm brewery be on at least 10 acres. The the actual residence, the actual farmhouse is only on about 4 acres. So the lot to the north of it is if this project is approved, will be merged, combining it for a total of 19 plus acres. So what you'll see on the plan, on the location map up here, this outline here, this bold print is the combination of both of the lots. And that is essentially what the merged lot would look like. What you have on the site plan, however, is not the whole 19 acres. The developing portion is pretty much going to be just on a less than 1 acre piece that's within the original 4 acres. So this particular location is, I'm sure you're all familiar, but just for the record, does front on Forest Road and is a corner lot that is on Auger Road. Again, the existing white farmhouse is fairly close to the street line and is across from Diglio's, the nursery there. What we've plotted on this site plan is your farm river to the back, your wetlands, obviously with the triangles, your farm buffer, and your review area. And if you'll notice, all of those lines are to the north and to the north and to the west of the development site. We've intentionally spent a lot of concerted effort to try to avoid the wetlands, avoid the river review area, avoid any of that, and preserve not only the wetlands, but also all of the crops and the agriculture that are currently on the farm. I'm gonna just flip over to the site plan just further to my right for a moment. It'll give you a better idea of where the crops are. Now, this is not the current plan. This is what's proposed. But even with what's proposed, you see this large, vast area back here is where all the crops are. And currently, these crops go into where the parking lot area is described. Okay. The current house.
So the public can see it, I just don't know if the public can see it. Like over on this
Have some elevations for you on the current house. Very much a traditional farmhouse. The current square footage is 2,298 square feet, with a little bit of a addition to the back. What you see on in the existing house right now, there has also been very much a concerted effort to preserve the look and character of this house. The siding color may change, but we're intentionally keeping that front porch to maintain the farmhouse character. From all perspectives, any renovations we make to this house are going to be very much true to the residential character of the neighborhood. So before we get into what the plan proposes, I just want to spend a little bit more time with you going over the existing elevations. So again, this is from the street. So if you're standing on the street looking at the house, the south elevation, which is if you're looking headed north, and then again, you also have the east and the north elevations. And finally, and as a part of your plan, you have the existing floor structure of the first and second floor. It is currently a 4-bedroom house. The plans within this proposal are mostly on the first floor, and I say mostly on the first floor. That is the only part of the house that is going to be used towards the patron area. The second floor, while we're doing some cleanup and obviously sheetrocking, that type of thing, it's not going to be intended use for any patron floor area at all. It's simply going to be storage or office space for the applicant. So that's what's currently there. So if we take a look at the colored plan, that's going to show you what we're proposing. In case it's a little easier to see, I also have the site plan just in black and white, and if you bear with me, I'll go through some of the features of that. To the top left corner, we have a bulk standards chart. The house is currently, there's going to be no height changes. There's no story changes to this house. Essentially, again, like I mentioned, most of the work is going to be on the first floor. We're not increasing any of the frontage or decreasing the frontage, so to speak. There's not any addition or any space going to the front of the building. The only addition to the building is to the back. Now, there's already a little bit of a jut out that currently exists there. What the plan is that will be taken down. It's not necessarily in a good state, and then a new addition will be put on the back. That addition back there is intended to be the brew house. That's where essentially all the equipment, where all the magic happens, I suppose, is right at the back of the house. The front of the house is essentially going to be the patron area. So the existing driveway to this house is going to be to the south. It is just a regular old-fashioned driveway at this particular point, somewhat in disrepair, but what we intend to do as to this particular driveway is very much restrict the access to that. You'll see on the site plans that we put up bollards and a chain fence there. The only intended purpose going forward with this particular driveway is to access the back of the building for loading purposes. Obviously, we anticipate that in renovating the house, there'll be some loading going on there. But once the property is functioning, that will be an extremely infrequent use for the loading. The purpose of this project is obviously to use local ingredients from the farm as much as possible. So this is not your standard brewery. The whole point is that it's a farm brewery and everything comes in from the town, or at least the vast majority does. So that will significantly reduce any deliveries, any need for trucks, and that kind of thing. What you'll also see back there is the dumpster. This is a smaller dumpster than you might see at some restaurants and so forth, but again, the intention is that there's not going to be the waste that you would see in a different brewery, and a concerted effort has been made to make this sustainable, to reuse whatever waste, whether it's mash or wastewater and so forth, and recycle it essentially, and make this a sustainable situation. So this existing driveway will be blocked off for most parts. It will essentially just be used for restricted and scheduled deliveries, essentially propane tank, trash removal. So the proposed full access for the public will be moved to the north side. As you'll see in your statement of use, we've tried to locate where the driveway would best fit, where the parking lot would best fit, to accommodate for traffic, give us the most sight lines, and this is where the decision was for the best location. As a part of your packet, you also have a traffic study. Initially, we were going to be looking to waive the requirement for a traffic study, but due to some various questions and concerns, we thought that we would go ahead and get that traffic report, so that would alleviate some of the concerns or issues or questions that the commission might have or that the public might have, and get some specific comments with regard to the driveway and traffic and the like. That particular report specifically notes excuse me, that the driveway location is in the most optimal space on this particular property. Essentially what you'll see is, what we added in here is the approximate location of the Diglio driveway, just to give you some frame of reference of where the proposed driveway is going to be. So going into the driveway is going to be a paved driveway just for the driveway portion. We've moved the parking lot back out of the setback, which is part of what your regulations require. Excuse me. And the parking lot back there is a gravel parking lot to try to obviously have the least impervious surfaces, make sure we have some erosion control and the like. It is currently designed for 20 spaces, which is one extra than your regulations require. What I have for you up on the left corner is the very last column says what the parking is required, and your regulations require parking based on patron floor area. So it is one parking space for every 50 feet. Excuse me. I'm sorry, 150 feet. So that your regulations require 19 parking spaces. We've allotted for 20, which does include one handicap spot. You'll see a lot of detailed plan sets as well. We have appropriate lighting, screening. We've added arborvitaes in the back, so to try to add some additional screening. There's a rain garden in the front of that to help with any potential erosion and any stormwater drainage onto the street. And then moving forward to the left, you'll see we have a handicap ramp there and a little bit of a patio area. With regard to that, I'll just note this has been a little bit of a work in progress because of the existing grade of the property, which we are trying to maintain as much as possible. Again, avoiding erosion controls, for a variety of reasons, we're trying to maintain the grade as much as possible. And in doing so, the ramp is a little bit of a longer ramp than you might see. I don't have any, I can tell you that the ramp meets all the regulations for building and zoning and so forth. What we will be doing going forward, based on some comments, and is looking into whether we can do that in a better way. This is one area that I can say is, I think, a mutual interest. Obviously, the applicant would like to make this as easy access for the patrons, and aesthetically, the town may have an interest in that. So we're going to be looking and investigating what other options we have with that, and that would include, based on a recommendation from the fire marshal, potentially having a wheelchair lift there, as opposed to that. Just to the west, we have a patio area there. The patio area is included within your patron floor area, and there'll be appropriate screening and lighting and the such. One thing I'll note for you is that there is an existing porch on the front. The existing porch right now does have a doorway access there. What we will be doing is blocking off that access and not utilizing the porch in any way. We're not planning on using that as a patron floor area. We're simply using it to maintain the aesthetic characteristic and residential characteristic of the building. What you'll see also on the site is that we've tried to locate some vegetation and trees that currently exist on the property, and again, trying to maintain as much of that as possible, mainly for screening purposes, for erosion control. This is obviously, while this is stewards of the land, the owner of that particular LLC is also a member of the farm that the land is located on, and very much interested in preserving the agricultural nature and the land behind that. So obviously they're trying to do everything that they can to maintain the ability to use that land properly. Dave, do you have any comments on the site plan while we're talking about this?
Yeah, Dave Nafis, licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Nafis and Young Engineers, 1355 Middletown Avenue, Northford, Connecticut. A few things I just want to let you, for housekeeping, up on the loading area driveway, there's an existing garage there that's going to be removed and filled in, and what it's going to do is, we've designed this area here so an SU-30 size vehicle, which is a size of a standard fire truck, can pull in and either back up and pull out, which is probably what they're going to probably do when they do deliveries. They'll be able to pull in, make a backup, either pick the dumpster up or drop something off, or pick up the brewery waste, and then be able to pull straight out. This plan has gone to DOT. We're just waiting to hear comments back from them, but it has been submitted for their comments. And the parking on the other side is basically, because of this, it's a two-way, it's 24 feet wide, so it's large enough for two-way traffic. So there shouldn't be a problem, in and out with there. We have to pave a section of it, the driveway, because of the steepness of it, because it's over 8%, so we're gonna make sure it's paved, so there won't be any erosion or rutting out. But the rest of the parking lot is fairly flat. That's why we went to a gravel, to eliminate as much as we can in it. Also, underneath the parking lot is where we're going to be removing and replacing the existing septic system. All there really is right now, there's like a cesspool behind the house on the hill over here, kind of where the patio is. That's going to be completely removed, and it's going to be installed. We're going to install a new code-compliant septic system. It's beautiful sand over here. Part of what we're doing too is we're going to install this. It's sized right now for a complete build out. In case they ever decide to put sprinklers in, they can actually if this was sprinkled, they can actually increase the amount of patronage. So that system is designed to handle any increase at this point, so they won't have to redo it. And pretty much, she's already taken everything else I have to say with.
So I'm not going to mention all of the details of this because I'd keep you here all night, and I'm sure everybody has better things to do. So we do have additional sets obviously the grading plan, the septic plan, the landscaping plan, and some detail sets in there as well. They're fairly self-explanatory, but if there's any questions with regard to that, we're happy to answer them as much as possible. But that's essentially where we're going here. So again, to the right of me is essentially a colored version of the site plan, just to give you a little bit better idea of as to what it's going to actually look like. And as you can see, there's a whole lot of green still left in there, and that's an intentional portion of the plan. Now, what I will get into now is a little bit more of the building and what we're proposing on the inside. Now, the cover sheet that you have here is essentially a perspective if you're heading south. So again, Diglio's would be to the left, and Auger Road is going to be just past this. So we had some little bit technical difficulties with getting a view as if you were actually in a car. So this is a little bit obviously more of a bird's eye view. So you see a little bit more of the field and so forth than you would if you were driving. But I think this gives you a good idea of all the agriculture that's going to remain, all the crops that are going to remain, and it gets you a sense of the feel. Just to get into the details a little bit more, what you have on your architectural plan sets is a schedule of data, and that will include what your regulations require, what is existing, and what we're proposing. Again, the height and stories do not change. The square footage of the first floor we are proposing to change just a bit for that back addition portion to accommodate the brew house. There is not going to be any change to the second floor with regard to square footage. So the total square footage change is about 800 square feet or so. And again, at the very bottom, we have listed for you what the patron floor area is. Your statement of use does detail what is included and what is not included within the patron floor area. Just to give you a little bit better of an idea of that. Is the first floor plan. So this is your A1 page. Again, to the back here, the addition is the brew house. And if you're interested in any of those details, we could discuss them. Some of the details that are placed there are essentially for building or future purposes, but we've tried to locate as much as we can at this particular point. To the lower portion of the page, you'll see the reverse C shape. In the upper left-hand corner, that would be the bar area. So what's included in the patron floor area to determine the appropriate parking for your regulations is essentially everything outside of that bar area and also the patio, so where we would anticipate the only seating. What I also included in your plan set, to help you see this a little bit more, is what we're calling the first floor furniture layout. And this is just a preliminary idea. I'm not sure that we can commit to this exact furniture layout, just for the record, but this will give you an idea as to what we're planning on doing. So obviously there would be the standard stools for a tasting room, relatively minimal seating, and just to the left lower corner is a little bit of a propane fireplace with a comfier little couch. What I'll note for you with regards to the floor plan is the seating only accommodates, I believe, 21 seats. So there's 21 seats, there's 20 parking spaces. The septic system is designed for 50 some, I believe. And again, not because we anticipate that necessarily 50 people will be in there, but it's a lot easier to put in a larger system now on the chance that there is expansion later. I'll tell you also the architectural plans are being essentially held to a standard of under 50 people. So everything we'll have with regard to the architectural details will be well sufficient for what the seating capacity is going to be. Now, again, any particular questions on the plan sets, I'm happy to go through them. But again, to not keep you here all night, what I'll do now is just go through a little bit of the statement of use, mainly I'm not going to go and read through the whole thing, because obviously you can do that yourself. But what I want to do is highlight some of the things or topics that have come up with discussions with department heads, discussions with neighborhoods, with the neighbors, and so forth. So the first section that I'll go through with you is section number 5, which is on page 4. What we've done is tried to detail as much as possible the water supply and usage. So flip that one around. So the water supply on this so the water supply for this site is based on an existing well on the site. We have had the well tested to make sure that it's potable. We've also done a little bit of a capacity test as well, and some of the details are flushed out in the statement of use for you. All indications are that the well is very much a usable well, it's a safe well, and there should not be any capacity issues or exhaustion of the well. What I've prepared for you here, and Carrie, I do have a smaller version for the record, is a little bit of an illustration that I think will help folks understand what farm brewery usage would be. And what we've done is comparing it to a single family house of 4. Now, ironically, this is the set that we use mainly because this particular farmhouse is a 4-bedroom house. So it's if this farmhouse remained using as a residential structure, as a single-family home, what the usage would be, and then what we anticipate the estimated usage will be for the farm brewery. Now, what you'll see is the estimated usage for the farm brewery is 279 gallons per week, which is about 14.5 gallons per year. Now, let me tell you how we got to those numbers. Obviously, we haven't used this particular well in this particular setting, but the equipment that we have or that we're proposing that we have to use has a certain capacity. And this is, I'll talk a little bit about this subject, but if you have more specific detail questions, it's probably going to be something for Alex. It gets a little bit up my pay grade pretty quickly, but I'll tell you the little that I know. So this system does allow for essentially three barrels to be brewed per week, and each of those barrels is about 93 gallons. So what we did was 93 times 3, or 93 times 3, got us to the 279, and then obviously we multiply that times 52 weeks in a year. What we did on the single family side is this is actually where we get some data sets, some actual real statistics on the average homes. And this particular set is not just an average home anywhere in the country or even anywhere in Connecticut. This is a data set that's specifically for the area. And what you'll see there is that the average use of a single family home for 4 people is 1,735 gallons per week and over 90,000 gallons per year. So I think that gives you a pretty good illustration, because the single family house with just 4 folks living in it has a use of the well that's more than 6 times what the brewery processing is on this site. Now, I'll note, just for the records, that what we use these figures for is essentially for the brewing process. So it might not use, or it wouldn't count for bathroom use, folks washing their hands, if anyone wanted a glass of water, that type of thing. But again, even if you triple the number, you're well below what the single family usage is. So we believe we have a basis that, you know, maybe gives some folks some peace of mind with regard to this particular well. Again, this well and the water system and usage is something that's being referred to eShore, and then the Department of Public Health has some input with regard to this. This particular well There's some newer statutes that essentially make this well a public well system. Sort of a little funny to think that a single well on a residential property would be a public well system. But what the advantage that has is that there's going to be essentially a few more hoops for the applicant to go through, a little bit more monitoring, and should give the community a little bit more peace of mind that this well is safe, this well is not going to be overextended, and this well is appropriate for this use. So next I'll get into some of the waste disposal, and that starts on page 4 and continues through page 5. What I've done is characterize the waste disposal into 4 different sections. You have your standard dumpster use, which is section D. And again, I flagged for you where the dumpster is and the relatively infrequent use that we're anticipating it for. And section A goes into the septic system, which obviously Dave just discussed. Sections B and C are going to be more specific to the brewery use. Now, what we've done with this particular system, the septic system is designed only for essentially the patron use, basically the front of the house. So the bathrooms, the water, that kind of thing. Anything that goes on in the brew house portion is not going to be going through the septic system. Okay? Deliberately designed that way. So any waste that comes out of the brew house is going to be dealt with totally separately and dealt with as a totally separate matter. So what I've detailed for you here is what happens with the wastewater, and then what happens with what we call the mash or the spent grains, essentially the solid waste that comes from the brew house. So 2 different tracks that these take. The wastewater, I've detailed for you where that particularly comes from. And it's essentially keeping things sanitary and processing or going through the brew process. Once the wastewater will be collected into totes and will be essentially delivered on a 1 month to 3 month basis to the Town of Deep River Water Pollution and Control Authority. That is by agreement with the town. That is something that DEEP has reviewed, and although we don't have an official formal approval letter for you as we stand here today, every indication and every conversation with DEEP suggests that we will not have any issue whatsoever. We do, however, have an official approval to dispose of the wastewater with Deep River, and they're familiar with what the plan is. With regard to the solid waste from the brew house, again, the section is mash or spent grains. Those are going to be collected and then they're going to be disposed of in one of 2 ways. And both of them go to the sustainable farm aspect of this, which I think is a very unique aspect to a farm brewery, and what makes this particular application something that should be strived for. So the mash are going to be dealt with either in that they will be used for compost, either within this particular farm or if other farms are interested in that, or more recently the applicant has received some interest in using the mash for cattle feed. And what you have in your packet is an actual written agreement with the Auger Farm asking to utilize that feed, and the scheduling of that will essentially be at the farmer's seasonal schedule. But again, all of that will be used in a very sustainable fashion. And none of it will be going through the septic system.
What's a tote?
What is a tote?
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of a very large tote. This probably gets
250-gallon jug of water.
250-gallon jug of water. Thank you.
On a skid.
And where will they be stored on the property?
They will be stored internally. So the very back portion of the addition has essentially where the totes will be stored to fill. The dumpster area is a screened dumpster area where should a spare tote become required, it will be held and kept within a screened area. So there should be no indication from the neighborhood or anything externally that there is totes. But for the vast majority of the time, the totes will be maintained inside that brew house portion of the building. And just for the record, the gentleman that helped to answer that question was Joe DeFrancisco, and a member of the farm. Section number 7, I detail some issues with, or some plans for drainage and stormwater. You also have a very detailed explanation of erosion and sediment control, or erosion and sediment control plan. That plan is actually detailed right on the plan sets. And hopefully you get to look at one of the large sets because there's a whole lot of words and the smaller ones make it a little bit harder to read. But essentially during construction, we've taken all efforts to obviously prevent any erosion that's going on. What we've done more recently is taken some additional steps. So as we've talked about, the parking lot is gravel, intentionally gravel so that water can flow underneath it and it shouldn't cause any erosion issues. But what we've also done is in the front of the property, the little sort of lightly shaded blue area, we've put in a rain garden in there to help with any stormwater drainage that could potentially come specifically from the paved driveway. That, again, the paved driveway is required to be paved for grading purposes. But that little blue area in there is the rain garden. We've also added some additional arborvitaes to the back of the parking lot. And at the suggestion of the Regional Water Authority, we originally were going to be mulching that area under the trees, but at their suggestion, what we'll do is switch to grass to, again, add for some erosion control. The next section, number 9, goes into lighting. The lighting is fairly self-explanatory, and the plans do have some detail sets, but just for the record, all of the lighting is consistent with your regulations and specifically intended to prevent objectionable light on the property lines and disability glare. They consist entirely of full cut-off and shielded type fixtures. Any of the signage light that's on there is top down. And any of the external lights pursuant to your regulations are going to be on a timer so that they're not on all throughout the night. But again, the most important aspect of this is that these specific lights that the regulations require are intended so they don't cause light pollution, essentially, so that it doesn't impact the neighborhood. And that's exactly what we've done. We've tried to limit them to as little as necessary, but obviously making sure that the parking area and so forth are secure. We've already talked about 10 is access. Any questions with regard to that? I'm happy to address a little bit further. Number 11 goes into parking and loading, which I think we've probably exhausted most of that. One thing that I'll highlight for you with regard to parking and loading is that there was a question with regard to any plan for possible overflow. So I suppose I'll state, should the happy occasion happen that there's more folks interested in this site that it might accommodate, the general plan is that it will all be accommodated on site. This particular location, again, is over 19 acres. The vast majority is farmland and wetland and so forth. And we're trying to restrict it specifically to what is required at this particular stage. But should one particular party come in and there's not sufficient parking, again, it will be dealt with immediately on site. For the isolated instances, we do have the front grass area that a particular car can park in. But under no circumstances should there be any need for any street parking, any pedestrian crossing, anything like that. If there is a consistent overflow issue, then the applicant will be looking to expand at that point for obvious reasons. That benefits the commission in the sense that you'll likely have an application before you to modify the site plan, and you'll have your ability to input and oversee that process. But again, at that point, should the need arise for that, then obviously all the acreage behind is potentially available. So at this stage, the applicant and the property owner are very much trying to strike a balance between the farm brewery and the agriculture and the crops being grown there. So this is the best balance that can be struck at this point. Should overflow and should this become a popular area, then that will be reconsidered. But again, with 19 acres, I think we have more than sufficient ability to address it on site and not impact the traffic in any way. Occupation and hours. What I'll just note for you for the record, your regulations don't specifically state what the hours of operation are with regard to a farm brewery. They give the commission some discretion. What we've asked for in this application is essentially what is allowed for the farm winery. So the hours that are asked for in our application are the farm winery regulations. My understanding is that the farm brewery regulations were intended to be very much consistent with that, and that's where we picked that up. However, I'll just note for the record that initially the hours of operation will be very much less. Again, this is the individual that's going to be running this operation is a member of the farm as well, and will be wearing multiple hats. So it'll be probably a Thursday, Friday, Saturday kind of situation, maybe Sunday, evening hours only, and then that will expand as demand calls. But so that we're not back here every month and bugging you for an hour here and an hour there, we're asking for the full hours that a winery has. And again, I've already reviewed some of the occupancy. I just wanted to flag that for you and show you that floor plan so you understood what the expected occupancy was going to be. Traffic we've talked about a little bit already. What I'll do is highlight for you, again, you do have a full traffic study within your set. The applicant decided that it might be prudent to spend the resources so that you have that information before you, and ideally could make a decision on the application today. The long and short of the traffic study is, well, there's various aspects to the traffic study. They analyze crash history. They actually send someone out to monitor the exact speeds that are on the road, so they don't just go with what the posted speed limit is. What they do is they actually monitor the speed of the actual road and then make their calculations. They do an assessment as to the number of folks that will be coming into the site and out of the site, and also do an analysis of some of what they call the intersections. So in this particular case, what they include within the quote-unquote intersections are the actual driveways as well. So obviously not formal intersections, but they've given you some analysis with regards to that. The conclusion that the report holds is that based on all of their analysis, it's the professional opinion of Fuss and O'Neill, the traffic engineers, that the proposed farm brewery will not have a significant impact to the traffic operation, and it will operate safely within the area. We did take a specific look at the intersection of Forest and Auger. Again, this was a topic of conversation that came up with our conversations with the police chief. And let me just give you some highlights on what's resulted as a result of that. We did take a look at, again, the crash history, and I understand that you should have 2 referral letters from the police. One is the initial letter that references he wants to have a conversation with regard to that intersection. And then you'll also have a supplemental report that I believe is from very recently, I believe it's from yesterday, that notes specifically that the conversations that we've had and the modifications that we've made essentially addresses concerns. So taking a step back, although there is somewhat of a traffic or a crash history within the Auger Forest Road intersection, we took a look and analyzed that a little bit more. The history, as opposed to folks coming south, more of the history is folks coming north. So essentially, if you left here and went down Forest, those are the folks that are more implicated, and the folks coming off Auger and turning right. So essentially, from here to there is where more of the issue is. And I note that for a reason. There was some discussion, there is some existing vegetation on the corner of Auger and Forest. The applicant has an interest in maintaining some of that as much as possible because it assists with erosion control and obviously for the farm purposes. And I'll note, it's a little unclear on the black and white site plan because of where the lines are. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. It looks like the tree line is right on the corner of the actual paved street, and that's based on the site plan, but that's not the case. If you're at the intersection, if you're on Auger Street, facing Forest, ready to take a left or a right, that vegetation is about a car length behind. So that vegetation, although you're taking a look at the site plan, may make you think that there's a sight line issue there. It's much more further back. And what I have is also some photographs Obviously, right now we're in the winter, so there's less screening from those trees. But we did take a look at some Google Maps and so forth when they're full with weeds, and they're still very much not in the way. So if you're right at that stop sign, ready to take a left or a right, that vegetation doesn't impact it. In the discussions with the police, they agreed with that, and what essentially the agreement that was posed was that this applicant, although the town does maintain and bushwhack some of the shrubs that are in front or the scraggly vegetation, the applicant is comfortable with conditioning this application that they ensure that it is maintained, so that it doesn't become more overgrown and it maintains the existing sightline. And again, just for the record, because it looks like more of the sightline issue is on the southwest corner of Auburn Forest, just for the record, this particular applicant nor the owners of this property that we're dealing with on the site don't own that particular land. And the trees on that side are much more close to the road and so forth. So we have had discussions and we've looked at that particular intersection extensively, but we believe, and the traffic study supports, that none of the activity on site is going to contribute to any of that, of the existing problems on the site. In fact, with the location of the driveway very much alleviates some of those issues in moving the existing driveway back or more towards the center of the lot, takes you further away from the intersection. That assists with that process. Your next section in your statement of use is landscape. Again, I think I've pretty much run through that, but what we've additionally done is, again, at the suggestion of RWA and some other folks, we have added those rain gardens and so forth. You also, section 15 is with regard to noise. I wanted to discuss with you because I'm aware that both the police had some concern with noise, and I'm aware that the neighborhood is interested in or is concerned with the noise potential on the property. What I've done in this statement of use is split it up into two sections, talking about the noise actually from the brewing process, so we can familiarize folks with that, and noise from any music or entertainment that might be on the property. So starting with the noise from any noise potential from the brew house, my understanding, and from the folks who know about this more than I do, is all of the brewing, all of the machinery, all of the equipment is on the inside of the building, and it is all relatively quiet, sort of boiling and that kind of thing that makes very little noise even from the interior, but none of it should emanate to the outside, or I don't even think if you're on the road you hear any of the noise coming from the internal brew house. There's one particular equipment that's a mill that has a little bit of a larger noise quality, but it runs very infrequently and only for about 5 to 10 minutes at a time. And there's no noise coming out of it from an extensive period of time. And my understanding of the characteristic of that noise is it's comparable to a drill or something of that fashion. So it's as opposed to something like a major mulching operation or something that would affect the neighborhood. So again, with regard to the brew house, we don't anticipate any noise impact whatsoever on the neighborhood. If there's any incidental loading and so forth, it would be consistent with what is currently there as a part of the farm activity. With regard to the music, what we did, or what the applicant did some time ago, and what you have as a part of your plan set is a noise report. So a scientific review. And what that review did was take the loudest possible music option, so that would be a live band, as opposed to an acoustic band or potentially speakers. So the assumption that they made with regard to that study was a live band, essentially on the patio. And then what they did was measure the noise, excuse me, the noise to the closest neighbor, which is at 7 Village Street. So if you're not familiar, 7 Village Street is essentially to the upper left corner of the site plan. And what the plan found was that under all circumstances, that the decibel level, which is how they read noise, and some police departments will actually have a decibel reader if there's any noise complaints specifically. The noise resulting from even a live music band would only be 32 decibels at the receiving end. And the North Branford noise ordinance allows for either up to 45 or 55, depending on the time of day. So at the very worst, you're at least 13 notches below on the decibel level with the loudest music possible, the loudest amplified music, and at the point where it would be the loudest time of the night. You'll also notice that we're trying to limit hours as well. Obviously, we would expect that the noise ordinance would apply. And I'll just note for the record as well that the applicant and his family live just down the street from this property as well. So they have a personal interest in maintaining the character and the residential nature of the area. This is not a developer that's from New York or Boston or whatever the case might be that wouldn't care about the neighborhood. So that they are making efforts in doing that. And then finally, I just note in your statement of review, again, the support of the community. What I originally provide with your statement plan is about 22 or so letters of support. As I mentioned earlier, just today we were handed another 50 or so sets. So these are individuals that specifically took the time to write letters of support. Your state representative is one of them. And the vast majority of them are either from Northford specifically or in the very local community. You also have some letters of support there from the brewing community that focus very much on the unique quality of this particular site and what's looking to be obtained, that this is very much a farm brewery using local ingredients, and again, hitting right to the heart of what your plan of conservation and development is looking to do. Support agriculture, support the farming community, and finding innovative ways to bring economic development to the town, while in this particular circumstance still very much retaining the residential character and quality of the site. So I don't know what they're probably said, use up all your words for the day. So again, we do have some folks with us in the audience if there's any technical questions that I can't particularly answer, but I'm happy to, you can have at it.
I'm gonna say this is the most thorough application we've ever had here. And I've been here for about 13 years or so, so very good presentation. I don't have any questions.
No questions. I always have questions.
Yeah, fire away.
The one handicap spot, does that meet our regs? Is only one required, or?
So the building official would have to confirm that, but he did review the plan.
Okay.
And he did not comment that additional parking spaces were needed.
Okay.
Or handicap
And I can confirm that they do.
Okay. And then the propane, the underground propane tank that was reviewed, that meets requirements
Fire
and
marshal,
setbacks from
yes.
other houses?
Yes,
Yeah, there's state regulations on that too, right?
yes, yes.
Okay, so.
And that would obviously need an additional permit at the time of construction from the
Okay.
fire marshal and building official.
And who monitors the well? The state? Deep?
Well, so let me take a couple, East Shore has, or our understanding is that East Shore is going to require 2 meters on the well.
Okay.
2 meters because of the sort of the separate processing. So one is going to be more for the patron area, so the bathrooms, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And a separate meter to monitor the brew house portion of it. And obviously we're going to comply with that. East Shore is reviewing the well and taking a look at all of our testing and so forth. In this particular circumstance, like I mentioned, the Department of Health does have some supervision over this because they consider it a public well system,
That's the one
which
I
is
was
a
looking for.
newer
Public.
state regulation.
Okay.
So just to give you a heads up, again, we anticipate no issues. We've had conversations with them. They've sort of jokingly said that we're the lowest tier and lowest level possible that they should review.
Mhm.
So we're really not the kind of well system that they typically review.
Okay.
That's more for subdivisions and very large properties.
Yeah.
But that will add an extra level of monitoring and regulatory authority and so forth. It is somewhat of a process, so we do ask that, obviously we'd like an approval on the application and that it be conditioned on a formal Department of Public Health approval,
Mhm.
which we anticipate just takes some time.
One more question.
Sure.
Do we need to know, or does this like food trucks going to the property need to be part of this, or discussions about that, or permits
Yes.
about that?
It should be discussed.
Okay, I didn't know if that can be brought up, or if there were discussions with the applicant already.
So I'll note that there's not going to be any food service inside. So
Okay.
there's no prep kitchens, there's not going to be any prepping of food, anything inside the building. At this point in time, there's no planned events. My understanding is that the town has some special event type of permitting processes and so forth, so obviously we'll follow through with regard to that.
Okay,
But the actual applicant himself won't be dealing with any food prep.
all right.
So I guess more directly, will there be food trucks on the property in the near future? And if so, where would they park and how would that be handled?
Any parking would be accommodated within the parking lot, so obviously if there's anything parked there, it would need to take up one of the spaces.
Yep.
This is probably a good time for me to have Alex chime in a little bit more, because he'd probably a little bit know, not probably, he would know a little bit more of those kind of finer details. And there he is.
For the record, please.
Please approach.
Okay, let's say here you
No,
want.
come on, yeah.
Come
no,
on
no,
up.
no.
And I'm gonna keep going back and forth, or Alex Francesco, Auger Road. The question was in regard to, are there gonna be food trucks on the property? As Sylvia mentioned, food truck, if we were to have ones to schedule there or come in, would take up one of the parking spaces and would be in that parking lot there. But all the food service would be from them, as food trucks are. And that's typically how a lot of breweries in our state, surrounding states, do food. Food also, there would be the option for if people want food delivered there from any takeouts, that you have food delivered to your house or whatever. People are at the liberty to do that, or if they want to bring food, just like the vineyards do in town. So, is that for now?
For now.
Any other questions?
Not now.
So what we could do at this point is the referrals that we have.
Sure, do you mind just passing the police one back? So, as Sylvia mentioned, we did have a department head meeting, and the building official was in attendance, fire marshal, police, East Shore Health, town engineer, myself, and actually economic development coordinator. So, I believe all of the comments had been addressed. I'll just kind of note for the record that the building official just said that everything has to be, the construction documents must comply with the 2018 Connecticut Building Code. The fire marshal said that the owner occupant must follow all pertinent codes. Zoning enforcement officer had some questions about the curb cut from Route 22, which I'll address with the police comments, and just said all new construction and parking must meet setback requirements, which it does, with that 50-foot distance from Route 22. So the acting police chief, James Lovelace, said he had concerns. The intersection of Forest and Auger Road has a history of many accidents. The local traffic authority routinely receives requests for traffic light installation at this intersection. Being a state road, these requests have gone to the state DOT and nothing has been done to rectify their concerns. There is a concern that adding a commercial business to this location may add to that hardship. Number 2, line of sight exiting Auger Road onto Forest Road is still an issue, and I do not see anything within this document that would ease this burden. Where would overflow parking take place if their parking capacity is full? If they have an agreement with Country Farm, then we will have pedestrians crossing this area, which is not well lit or marked. And then if alternate parking is needed, are sidewalks being considered to keep pedestrians off the roadway? What impact will noise have on the surrounding residents, and how will this be monitored, especially with a patio? Can the venue be used for weddings or large functions with bands, DJs, etc.? Because the police will have to respond to these calls. Regarding the dumpster location and loading dock, will trucks be backing out onto Route 22? If so, what will their line of sight be into a heavily traveled road? And then will the main parking lot be designed to handle large vehicles, i.e. fire department apparatus, police vehicles, buses, large vans? So he did follow up on December 5th with a letter saying, "Thank you for inviting me to the informational session with a representative for Stewards of the Land Brewing today. During the discussion, I believe the representative and I have come to an understanding on ways to mitigate any of these concerns in my previous memo. The parking of vehicles was thoroughly discussed, and I believe will not be an issue of concern for vehicular or pedestrian traffic. The alignment of the driveway is in a good location across from Country Farms LLC. A commitment to monitor and cut back the trees and brush by the property owner in regards to sightline is preferable without disregarding any erosion control measures. The plan as described will be able to accommodate a refuse company to safely operate, to enter and exit the property, was assuring as well as scheduling the removal during off-peak hours of vehicular traffic. I now understand the property owner is in the process taking steps to mitigate any noise, and information was produced that noise emanating would be under the current regulations. As always, the police department is in support of new business within the town of North Branford. This meeting was very productive for myself and others present. It is important for all parties involved to discuss potential issues prior to commitment to mitigate any misconceptions or discrepancies. And then Regional Water Authority just commented about erosion controls and that they should be installed at the edge of the filled areas and be inspected weekly after each rainfall. And the disturbed area should be stabilized as soon as practical, and a grass buffer between the gravel parking area and the tilled farmland should be established, as already addressed. And then East Shore Health just provided some general comments in an email from Chris Boutier. This is not an approval. We are only providing comments. This is dated Monday, December 3rd. We are providing comments to guide the applicant through the application process. 1, provide wastewater disposal agreement in writing. 2, contact DEP to get a wastewater hauling permit. 3, provide a detailed plumbing plan showing the floor drain that leads to the wastewater collection container. Provide solid waste disposal agreement in writing. Provide well yield and estimated water use for information. Register the wells with DPH Drinking Water Section and share required reports with East Shore District Health Department. Change in use has made your business a non-community PWS, and fill out the relevant applications. Provide a water meter, provide a dishwasher, provide a detailed floor plan showing equipment location, place dumpster on a non-porous surface in an enclosure, and finally, provide East Shore District Health Department updated maps and soil information. I believe most of those have been addressed, and
Yes, so anything that can be addressed at this stage has been addressed. The plumbing plan will obviously be forthcoming. Those are details that Chris acknowledges are later on in the process. So his letter specifically notes that public water system, the PWS is the public water system, that we did file the screening form, and we are in the middle of that process. Same thing with the DEP, or the Department of Public Health applications or registrations. Those are all in the works as well. The only, so we believe that we've hit on all of those marks, and we've talked about them today. The only thing that I haven't talked about is the question of the special events. I note that I believe your regulations or your ordinances already have a special event permitting process. So what I would ask is if there is any conditioning with regard to special events, that's acknowledged, but also as well that this application not be conditioned for anything more than what the farm winery regulations require. For whatever reason, the farm winery regulations do already discuss special events, and the farm breweries don't. I'm not sure what the distinction was, but again, if it is conditioned with regard to any special events, we'd ask that it be consistent with the farm winery.
one quick question about hours of operation.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include production hours? So when you stated those hours, because in the regulations we would just want to include both retail hours and production.
Fair question. What the hours that I've stated are more with regard to patrons.
Okay.
My understanding, and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the brewing process will essentially be during farm morning hours. Again, so if there is any loading or any hops being brought in, that kind of thing, it's done during normal farming hours. Is that correct? For the record, the applicant's nodding his head.
referrals, or?
No, that's everything.
All right.
Thank you.
So what we're gonna do at this point is we'll have some public comment. So if there's any questions, they're gonna direct them to us if you wanna note them down, and then after all the public comment, you can just go through all those, questions or whatever it might be.
Sure.
Sound good?
Let me just mention one thing in case folks have questions about. It's hiding a little bit because we've got the two pedestals. But the applicant did bring some of the barrels and some hops and so forth just to illustrate and give you a visual of what we're talking about. Specifically, the barrels were brought in to show the limited size. This is very much a smaller on-site property, so if you've been to some of the larger breweries where they have the huge tanks, that's not the plan here. Okay, and if there's any questions with regard to what those things are more, or any details with regard to the brewing process, the applicant's here to discuss those as well.
Okay, perfect. So at this time, for this application, if you'd like to speak on it, for or against it, have any questions, please come up to the mic, state your name and address, and your comments.
Hi, Ashley Joyner, 41 Jackson Lane, Northford. I just have a couple questions for clarification. I heard the attorney say that they want the winery hours, but I don't know what those hours of operation actually are. And in regards to the hours of operation of a winery, everybody who lives in this valley knows that noise travels throughout the valley. And so what we'd be asking is some sort of hours of operation during the week nights that no bands or outside bands are playing because we need to sleep. And noise does travel in that neighborhood. And it travels all the way up the hill, through the valley, up the other hill. And everybody who lives there knows that. And the other clarification that I would like is on the actual water usage. Is it 93 gallons of beer that is being brewed, or 93 gallons of water that is being used per tank? Because if it's 93 gallons of beer that's being brewed, then it takes much more than 93 gallons of water to brew that 93 gallons of beer, hence the wastewater. So the actual average that they were saying is more water usage than what they're saying. So that's why I wanted clarification on that. Is it 93 gallons of water and it would be reduced down to the actual beer being produced? Or is it 93 gallons of beer, which takes more than 93 gallons
I
of
know
water?
there was 93 gallons of beer, and then but then,
93 gallons of water.
No,
For-
they
for
said
3
93
tanks.
gallons of water for 3 tanks. So
So it's gonna
if
produce
they're
less
producing
beer.
93 gallons of beer, it actually takes more than 93 gallons of water
Right.
per barrel.
yeah, okay, I see,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I want the clarification on.
All right. Just
Okay.
in the hours of operation, just so you know, for the wineries, it's 12 noon to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 12 noon to 12 midnight Friday and Saturday, but the applicant, those are the established hours for the winery.
Mhm.
But the hours that they're starting with would be from Friday 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday from noon to 10 p.m., and Sunday from noon to 6 p.m.
Okay.
So the only hours, or night hours would be on Friday. But I
Okay.
mean, the winery hours are a little bit different.
For me
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
I would request for bands to end at 9 p.m. if they're outside.
I don't think there's a plan for bands.
But that can
double
always
check.
develop in the
Well,
future,
not
and
to-
that's why
yeah,
I'm
Not to go
asking.
off on a tangent, but
Yeah.
we will be looking at, having a public hearing on a regulation for
For
special
that.
events for
But they're
both
not asking
residential-
that as a special event.
Well, they would, no, I'm just saying that would be incorporated in there. We might call it, I'm calling it a special event, but it would be for other areas, wineries, and farm breweries and stuff. So we'll be considering that in the future as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Would anybody else like to speak?
I'm John Rose. I live at Dayton Hill Road in Northford. I want to speak in favor of this application. I think it has a lot of positives for the community. I think if we talk to a lot of people in town, they're worried about economic development and also preserving farms in town. And I think this hits both of those things. It's another aspect that a farm can do, and it also is more business in the town. So because of that, I think it's positive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Pursley, Marjorie Drive. She did an excellent job, by the way. She answered most everything
The
that I
best in
have on my
13
list.
years.
Yeah, it's terrific. And yeah, there's two things. There's the manufacturing of the beer, and then there's a tavern. And with the manufacturing, East Shore, DEEP all have their regulations, which they have to follow. So I think it's all kind of really covered. And like Ashley had said, it takes between 6 and 10 gallons of water to produce every gallon of beer from the internet, which is what I have to go by. I'm sure Carrie has found out that it does take more water than just the beer. So I'm assuming East Shore would know how much capacity the well has, and it won't affect anybody else in that area. But that's all East Shore stuff. And I read that they can't use the solids as compost. I don't know why, but I heard that it makes really great animal feed, so that's good. They don't say where the solids will be stored on the property. I don't know if that might be something that might attract things. And the tavern, I don't really know the plan. I know she mentioned arborvitaes. I don't know if the arborvitaes are between the parking lot and the residents behind them or not.
Yeah, they're right on.
Right at the south of the parking. If you come over here to this, come to the one that's
Are there
has
arborvitaes
color?
between here and the houses?
Yes.
Because when
yes.
people park the cars and their headlights, as long as the headlights aren't going straight to the
If you look
parking
over here at
lots.
the one with color.
Okay,
yeah,
right
you
there,
go.
I see them. Yeah.
Can you grab the
Oh.
other clip?
Yeah, on this one you can see.
Oh, you can see it on the.
Yeah, okay.
Right, they're gonna be right here at the back.
Yeah, just so, I don't know how far away the houses are, but if the headlights or anything, go for there. And I have heard that noise does travel in the valley, so, and you might wanna, it's only 20 people, so you would hope it wouldn't get that loud. 32 decibels is not very loud at all. A food truck might actually be more than 32 decibels. So, that's the only thing. And the hours on the application are actually Monday through Friday, 4 to 10. They aren't going to start off with shorter hours, but the application does mention
Right.
the 7
Yep.
days a week. The intersection, that's a bad intersection, but it has nothing to do with this property. It has to do with the curves on 22, which nobody has any control over. I've never had any problems. The problem with it's just this Auger Road is very steep, and I think that's the major problem with that. And I think it's a great addition to the town. As long as, if you don't have any residents out here saying anything about it, I think it's a great location for it, and it brings together the two sections of the town, so.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak?
Nancy Clow, 20 Village Street. When I got the notice for special use permit, it just made me stop to think, and we're right down the street and we were not talked to. I got this notice and it said that this meeting started at 7 p.m. instead of 6:30, so I didn't hear the beginning of it. And I had these things popped into my head, so there's no rhyme or reason to the order that I'm going to ask just to have these things addressed. A lot of them have been. Number one, the house was turned down from becoming a two-family home because of an R40 zone, but now we're going to let a bar brewery is okay. Is this considered spot zoning? This, number two, is this location has at least 3 vehicle accidents a year with alcohol involved. The predicted number of accidents will increase. 3, where are the 10 acres associated with this farm brewery? Do they have to be contiguous? Across the Auger Road Street is Michael DeFrancesco and not the farm. Is he on the application too? Planning and zoning gets to set the hours of the operation. The noise level travels through the valley. Everyone on Village Street, Auger Road, and Totoka will be impacted. And the planning and zoning does the lighting and signage. 5, who is going to monitor the proposed 93 gallons of water 3 times a week or beer production? 6, is the city water supplied to this house, brewery, home, or will they be draining our aquifer? If there is a well, how deep is it, and how will neighbors be protected from the aquifer dropping below these levels? 7, where the state statutes to protect the groundwater incorporated into the town's text amendment? 8, will this brewery be taxed at the retail rate for having a retail sale of beer and cafe and tasting room, or as a residential or farm? 9, will this site be following the Connecticut DEP requirements for wastewater discharge of 150,000 gallons per year, independent of the amount of beer brewed? I don't particularly have an objection, but I'd like to have these things clarified and have you address these.
The one I can address is it spot zoning, and no, it's not. It's not spot zoning.
And yet, is this still considered R40 residential?
Yes.
Then how are we allowing or requesting a bar brewery on an R40?
So we have a text amendment for it, it's in our regs.
So it's based on the use. So our use chart applies various uses to the underlying zoning. And then the uses are permitted either through, you know this, through site
Yeah.
plan or special use permit.
Okay, so then how does it get taxed? Is a farm or?
It's a
has-
question for the
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
assessor.
that would be,
We
you
could-
could contact the town assessor.
Okay,
And then the rest of the questions, I'll have the applicant answer for you.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Sid Clow, 20 Village Street. I still have problems with this traffic. And I heard this statement, well, it's the state's problem. Turning on to Auger Road from Forest Road, I've experienced people almost hitting me head-on, the way they turn. Now, you go up the street a little bit and turn into the brewery, you got the same problem. If someone's coming out and coming in, not only that, with a brewery now being there, we're going to bring up the traffic. No one who lives in this area is unfamiliar with the fact that every morning and every afternoon, we are a traffic nightmare coming in and out of Village Street, which would then include the brewery. Unless you put a light there, I'm really concerned that we have accidents there, we have a record of it, it's going to increase. That's one of my big problems too. Okay?
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Anybody else? Can you address the questions? There was a couple surrounding about the water usage.
Mhm.
Okay.
Water usage, correct on the, I guess it came up a couple times. So correct on the water usage. I did note the only data that we essentially have are, with regard to the brewery, the gallons that are referenced on that chart that we had are the gallons of the produced beer. Because that's the data that we have essentially. So I acknowledge that the numbers aren't exactly apples to apples. But I did know that even if you triple the number, you'd have to multiply the number times 6 for it to even equal a single-family residence with 4 individuals. So I think there was some revolving questions around that with regard to who monitors. The Department of Public Health is going to have some monitoring of that. The well will have 2 different meters on it to monitor both the patron area as well as the brew house area, so essentially the water that's going into the beer process. East Shore will have some review of that as well. If I don't hit the mark on some of these, just let me know. Right now, so there's 2 lots right now, that they're both owned by the farm. One lot that is 4 and some acres and the other's 15 and some acres. If this application is approved, they will be merged and there will be, over 19 acres total. They're all contiguous. Yes, they're all contiguous. One thing I didn't mention, in case it is something that comes up, so the regulations require 10 acres, we have 19. And the regulations require at least 1 acre of beer ingredients being grown in the town. We have 2 acres of beer ingredients being grown in the town right now. Should this application be approved, they will likely increase some of the berries and more of the flavoring aspects. And some of that will actually be on the actual site. So right now, the hops, for instance, are grown further south, sort of more across where the DeFrancesco farm is, the sand, a little bit more down that way and up the hill. So the test site was there, and the hops are currently being grown there. Some of the berries and such that they use are being grown there, but again, the berries and that portion of the agriculture will be added to this exact site should the application be approved. Solid waste is stored indoor. Those are the totes that we talked about. So it will be in the back of the house in that newer addition section. Always stored indoors. Any empty totes for future use will be stored in the enclosed area where the dumpsters are.
Is that for the wastewater? The totes, right?
Yes.
The solid waste too.
The mash essentially will also be held indoors and will be picked up by either, currently there's an agreement with the Auger Farm. If there's any other farms that are interested in cattle feed and so forth, then we'll accommodate that as well. Ma'am, what I have is a statement of use that may address sort of a lot along this. I know you had a lot of different concerns, and I apologize for if there was a timing typo on the notice. So I think that those will all be addressed in there, just so I don't take up time again. The sign on the property will meet regulations and will be under, equal to or under 16 square feet in total. And there's one sign on the property that will essentially be between the driveway and the house. A very modest and appropriate looking sign. Any lighting either on the sign is top down, so there won't be any light pollution. Any lighting either in the parking lot or on the building is also specifically designed so that it's top down. No city water, well water. All the deep regulations do need to be followed. And just to clarify for the record with regard to the intersection, the light, any light at that intersection or anywhere on a state road is exclusively at the whim of the Department of Transportation. My understanding is that the town in and of itself, regardless of this application, has been consistently applying with the Department of Transportation unsuccessfully for a light. If there's something that we can do to sign on a petition, I don't think anybody, this applicant would disapprove of that. Unfortunately, we just don't have any control whatsoever because of this state highway. Any questions I didn't hit on?
I think we're good. Yep. Just again, anybody else would have any other comments?
Yes. Ken Newbury, 180 Village Street. Regarding the water, that was a dairy farm, and I don't think the water will ever be an issue due to the fact that the water that was used on that property before, my great-grandparents had a dairy farm there, and there was probably 40 or 50 milking cows there. I don't know the exact amount that a milking cow drinks per day, but I do believe it's between 30 to 40 gallons on a milking cow. So water, I don't believe, is an issue. I think this was put together very well, and I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Anybody else? So Carrie, oh.
Fred Auger. I actually own 2 neighboring properties, one a farm and one a residence. I would like to support the project with the one concern with the noise, that there is some thought behind that. I agree with Ashley that, you know, Sunday night at 9:30 probably don't really want to be listening to somebody's live music. So with the exception of that, support the project.
Thanks. Anybody else? Carrie, you want to sign it?
So I did just want to state for the record that we checked the list of butters located within 500 feet of both properties, both the immediate parcel where the house is located and the adjacent property, which would be adjoined to this to comply with the 10-acre requirement. Everyone had been notified. It did say 7 o'clock on here, which is something that I missed as well. Clearly, it's now 8 o'clock, so we've gone way over. I don't know if there are any matters that haven't been addressed that people have questions about, but I think that was all addressed and satisfied.
All right.
Yeah.
So as far as all the referrals, we don't have any open issues?
East Shore Health, we need just to hear back from them
Okay.
about that. And these are the final set of plans. So the town engineer just hasn't seen the final set.
Okay.
Because these just came in.
If I may?
Sure.
So we don't have a formal approval from East Shore, but we believe that we've fully addressed everything with East Shore. We, in the last day or so, had a very line item and very specific meeting with East Shore to go over all of their concerns or comments. My understanding as to why there still may be some comments is just because of the little nitty-gritty details. So for instance, where is a sink? They need the plumbing plotted out, that kind of thing, which obviously East Shore is gonna have jurisdiction over those things beyond this application. So with regard to East Shore, I think I can confidently say that there are no reasons for disapproval, and we're happy to condition on East Shore approval. But with regard to any additional comment necessary, I don't believe that they have any additional comments that we haven't addressed. With regard to the engineer was part of the meeting with the department heads, and did also list off a series of concerns by him. We have addressed every single one of those concerns. So again, I believe that all of the plans will meet any architectural specs, and obviously, should there be any additional detail that's necessary, we'd be happy to condition on the engineer's review and approval.
So,
If we close the
you
public
could
hearing.
close the public hearing, and then I
But
would
then
draft a
If
motion.
there was anything that came up, we could have no conversation with the applicant.
Correct.
So,
Right.
I mean, if you're comfortable with that, I mean, we can't act, we're not in the place to act on it tonight. So we can leave the public hearing open, so if anything does arise, then we can have a conversation about that. Otherwise, we can close the public hearing, and then we'll just have to make our decision on any information that comes through, from East Shore and from the town engineer. So, I mean, if you think you're comfortable, we don't need to keep the public hearing open, I'm okay. I would ask the rest of the commissioners, but if you're good with that, we can close it. Otherwise, my recommendation is to leave it open in case something does occur, so we can have that conversation. But I'll leave that up,
If I could just consult with my client for just a moment to make sure, but
Yeah.
again, I'm confident that if there is any miscellaneous item, that we will fully address it with the engineer.
Okay.
We've spent a lot of time and so forth. So I understand that maybe between your agenda today, and I appreciate that it's an extensive one, but if either you could pass that question so I can discuss it with my client, or take a recess at any point, and then I can let you know whether we close it or continue.
This be a good time for a 5-minute break.
The other, just quick thing one suggestion is I could run through some potential conditional approvals. I don't have the motion because I wanted to look at the final plans, but just to discuss those potential conditional approvals, or conditions, I should say,
Okay.
not conditional approval, conditions that would be added to make sure that you
Yep.
guys are okay with them and if they have any comments. Should I
Okay.
run through those? So obviously, one condition that the two parcels be combined and recorded prior to any permits being filed. DOT comments would have to be complied with because we don't have those, and I don't think that we would before the next meeting.
Right.
Do you want to have something in there explicitly stating that no events with more than blank number of people can occur? I don't know. There's been conversations about no weddings, no outdoor events. I think stating a type of event is tricky, so I don't know if you want to state a number or just not include that at all. And then something conditional about East Shore Health Department's requirements, obviously, the DEEP application, and then also stating the hours of operation, which also we need to include the production.
So are you good with those conditions?
Yes, I would have to just clarify what the appropriate hours of operation on the processing side would be with my client, and I can do that when we take a recess briefly. Just for the record, with regard to we mentioned with regard to special events and potentially some terminology with regard to that, I noted that we'd ask that it not be more restrictive than the farm winery. And just for the record, your 42.5.12 subsection 2 subsection D, midway through, states that a farm winery cafe may also conduct special events such as dinners, luncheons, corporate parties, etc., provided that the service of food and or wine at such special event shall occur solely on the indoor and or outdoor seating areas as shown in the site plan. So I guess the Cliff Notes version of that would be that it would be in the patron floor area that's calculated. So just to assist you with that. I don't think other than that we have any issues with conditioning, with just the caveat so that I can clarify what the processing hours would be.
All right, so
Do we need to have a discussion about occupancy hours? Or we'll have a discussion at some point?
well, that's what she's gonna find out. I mean, the hours of, they have the hours of operation.
Yeah,
But
are we
now,
having a
what
discussion
we-
about that?
Well, we can, but
Okay.
I'm just saying, what she's gonna find out what the hours of production are.
Processing, production.
So the hours of operation, they're looking for the hours that are in the farm wineries right now. So, I mean, they're already there, so,
I'm not in support of that, so that's why I don't know if we're gonna have a discussion about that.
oh, we would have to
Okay.
if you're not, yeah. So,
So generally conditioning on hours, I don't think I have a problem with. If there is conversation with regard to what the hours would be, then obviously I'd prefer that to be in public session so that or public hearing so that we can respond.
Right.
If for some reason it's.
well, we might as well bring it up now. I mean, well, go ahead.
If we wanted them to be like the farm winery, we would have done that, and when we were creating this text amendment, there was a lot of discussion about purposely not doing that, because also we were also at the same time vetting the special events, because we do want to protect the Sunday night through Thursday functioning, and so, again, if we wanted to do that, we could have, but we purposefully didn't to protect, people who want to go to sleep at 8, 9 o'clock on a Sunday through Thursday night, and are maybe a little bit more forgiving. So I'm not in support of just a blanket, here's what we're doing with the winery, because the spirit of that text amendment for the brewery and then moving into special events was to actually have more control over that and not just have a blanket, to protect the residents that's around it.
So what would you?
I'm in support of the Friday, the Friday, the Saturday, Sunday, but not a blanket, Monday through Friday, 4 to 10. I'm not in support of saying just follow the farm winery, because we purposefully did not have that verbiage in our farm brewery, and we were not moving in that direction for special events.
Wouldn't that be discriminatory in that we're allowing it for a vineyard and not a brewery? You know, a duck is a duck.
Yeah. Well, we can have that we can have that discussion at a different time, but, so, if you want to just go back to the applicant, we'll take a 5-minute recess now, talk about the hours of operation of the manufacturing process, and then also the operation, the sampling room hours. So if you want to have that quick discussion, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then and also about whether to close the public hearing, or
Sure.
where you stand on that.
Yes,
Okay.
and if I could just in case it's something you want to mill around while you're on your break, just so I can state for the record, and I appreciate your agenda for today and some logistical challenges that might occur, but for the record, again, because this is essentially managed by individuals that are part of a farm, the timing and approval of this application is unfortunately very critical for the applicant. If again, you're not meeting second time in December, so that would take us into a January meeting. That would inhibit any kind of progress that could be done during the winter time, which is very critical for folks that are farmers, because obviously once the spring hits, they have to focus on that. So how that would impact this is it could theoretically delay this a year, or theoretically delay it inevitably, which would obviously have a snowball effect on economic development and so on and so forth.
Well, the agenda has nothing to do with, we're just not, there's a lot of information here, and we won't be prepared to act on it tonight. It will carry over to the January meeting.
Understood.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
We'll take a 5-minute, we'll be back about 18 after. We're going to go back in session, please.
You know what I want to do at a restaurant is I think everybody should have a clean fork.
You're on the record.
To taste other people's food. Everybody should have a clean fork. They could taste other people's food.
I don't mind that. I grew up like that. Yeah. So,
Yes.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
So I did speak with my client, and with regard to the manufacturing hours, the request is 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'll note that 6 p.m. is a little perhaps earlier than some.
6 a.m. you mean?
6 a.m.,
Yep.
yes. 6
Okay.
a.m. to 4 p.m. Sunday to Sunday for the manufacturing aspect of it. I'll note that that may be a little earlier than normal, but again, all the brewing is done inside, and we don't anticipate any noise emanating. And again, so the client's preference, actually, if I could take a step back, would be essentially stating farmers' hours and seasonal sort of daylight hours. If that's not specific enough, that would be the preference, that they'd be farmer hours per se. But if that's not specific enough, then 6 a.m. to 4. With regard to occupation, the applicant has agreed to either amend his statement of use or the application, or agree to a condition with the following hours: Sunday 12 noon till 6 p.m., Monday through Wednesday 12 noon to 8 p.m., Thursday 12 noon till 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday 12 noon till 12, which is consistent with the winery regulations. And with regard to closing the public hearing, the applicant is in favor of closing the public hearing tonight.
So just one of the things, and Trish brought this up, I just want to make clear, and when we went through the regulation, we left that hours to the discretion of having a conversation with the applicant and his commission. It wasn't, we looked at matching them up, and we said no, depending on where these would go.
Understood.
So I just want to make sure that we're clear that,
Yes.
you know, it's, again, I'm going to use somebody else's, I'm going to steal somebody else's anecdote, it's not apples to apples.
Understood. Understood.
I stand corrected.
Yes.
So, I mean,
it does
Trish
say-
corrected all of us, so.
Yes,
yeah.
and I
just
wasn't
wanna make sure
suggesting that
clear.
it's mandatory by any way. I was just suggesting that there is somewhat of a precedent, and using that as an example.
Right.
Theoretically, the applicant could ask till 2 a.m., but they're not.
Right.
They're not doing that either.
Right, and there's also, if there's hours that maybe this commission, in their discussion, let's say if we put hours in, like, right in your scope of work here, you have 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Friday, noon to 10 p.m. and noon to 6 p.m. on Sunday. So, I know that's what initial intention is.
Yes.
So, just to let you know, is that we if those hours, whatever hours go into his application, let's say you took your initial hours that were in this application and you put those in, you could come back and say, we want to change the hours of operation. It would not have to go through a whole site plan, public hearing. We would just still have, you would have to come to the commission to amend the application for those hours. So I just want to make sure that, because I see that you went 12 to 12 on Friday and Saturday, probably not going to use those hours because your initial hours are different. So if the commission comes up and puts certain hours in that kind of matches what the initial hours are, they can be changed with just an amendment, amendment to the application, which would not require a site plan or a public hearing. We just have to come in front of the commission and for that discussion. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Okay, and just again, so on the point of being clear, pursuant to the statement of use, the request is for the hours that I just stated.
Right.
The only reason I noted the initial hours is just to give full disclosure, but the request isn't for the initial hours.
Right.
Obviously, everybody gets busy, and I appreciate that it doesn't require another public hearing, but it does require another meeting and another application fee, which just logistically we'd like to avoid if possible, which is why we're asking for the longer hours. But again, just to inform the neighborhood and so forth what the initial intention is.
Yeah, I mean, if there was something in the hours, I would recommend to the committee that we would waive any application fee for just changing an hour from initial, we understand that it'd be if approved, it'd be a business you're starting off, and then there might be some changes that need to be done on it, and we understand that, especially with the hours of operation. So we would remain flexible on that.
Understood, thank you.
Yep, and as far as a public hearing, you're okay with closing it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think we covered everything. Carrie, do you have anything else?
No.
So if we don't have anything else for the applicant, we can, if you'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing part of this application.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the public hearing is closed, and that passes 3-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll apologize for ruffling in advance.
Oh, no, that's okay. Carrie, do you, so I'm going to do both. I'm going to read both.
Yes.
The whole time I was back there, I got my coffee up here, but I couldn't get it.
The history you were doing and trying to bring the two sides together.
I lost my, you're doing that.
Awesome. Love that. Didn't expect anything less, but still, it was very nice.
So now we move to marijuana.
I lost my agenda. Is this agenda?
Yeah, this is on the same night.
These two.
We're still in public hearings.
Yeah. Hold her. She's more up with.
She's my,
Are they both together? Oh, they are.
Yes.
All right. Excuse me? Excuse me, folks, can you take that out into the hallway?
Take the festivities out.
Yeah.
Or pull a permit.
This is gonna be a long one, and since Alex hasn't done anything yet tonight.
I agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Passing that down.
are we're doing the public
Both
hearing
together.
separate though. I
Well,
thought,
you can
or-
read, you gotta
or
read
just
the
all
read them all.
together,
Yep,
though?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
Let's start from the
Notice.
legal notice.
Legal notice. Legal notice, North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission
will hold a public hearing at 6:30 PM on Thursday, November 15th, 2018, at North Branford Town Hall, 909 Foxton Road, North Branford, Connecticut, to consider the following. A, application 2018-13, text amendment to North Branford zoning regulations to add a definition of medical marijuana dispensary and add section 42.5.18, which would allow medical marijuana dispensaries in business zones with an approved special use permit and compliance with special standards. Applicant, North Branford Planning and Zoning Commissions. B, application number 2018-14, text amendment to North Branford zoning regulations to add a definition of medical marijuana production facility and add section 42.5.19, which would allow medical marijuana production facility in industrial zones with an approval special use permit and compliance with special standards. Applicant, North Branford Planning and Zoning Commissions. At this hearing, all interested persons may appear and be heard, and written communications will be received. Copies of proposals are on file for public inspection in the Town Planning Department. Harry Dulac, Chairman.
We had to change the date on that because we had the snow date out.
Okay.
Right.
So seated for this public hearings are members DeFrancisco, Mace, Sienna, and Dulac. And before we get started, I just want to give you a little history of what, why the town is bringing up a text amendment for medical dispensaries and also production facilities. Going back, I think about 4 years ago, the state of Connecticut passed legislation that allows the dispensary medical marijuana and also production facilities in our state. Upon those actions in the state, we put 2 moratoriums on to not allow the use for either one of those cases until we got a better understanding how it was going to work, see how other communities were going to handle it, and so where we've come up to, we've seen that Carrie's worked with, and we've done some research of other towns and communities, and so where we came up is that instead of sitting back and allowing somebody to come under our current regulations, whether it's retail, industrial, or business, agriculture, whatever it might be, and some towns do that. They do have medical marijuana dispensaries or maybe grow facilities, but they don't have a specific regulation. They let it fall under their general regulations. Some other towns, I think Branford has
Yeah.
specific regulation.
Oh, no, they don't. Sorry.
Branford doesn't.
Simsbury.
Simsbury and a couple other towns have specific regulations. So this commission thought what we would do is come up with specific language regarding production facilities and dispensaries, bring it out to the public, see what the feeling is, what their thoughts are, and then put a specific regulation in instead of letting it just sit out there where any applicant could come in under, once they get permitted by the state, come in and fall under one of our general regulations. One thing that this will not, which is not in the scope of both these applications, is any potential future recreational marijuana. That would be taken up on a separate issue. So if the state at any time in the next session or future sessions allows recreational marijuana, whether it's growing it, whether it's, well, I'm not saying growing it, dispensing it, it would be my recommendation to this commission that we would put an automatic moratorium as we did on the 2 that we're talking about tonight. So this has no impact on any future legislation that the state would come through on recreational marijuana. So that being said, okay.
Should I do an overview of what the proposed text amendments are?
Yeah, for both of them.
Yes.
Yep. So we're going to do both of them in combination. We're going to kind of read through them, so when we do get the public comment, we will keep this open for a number of meetings. We're not going to close this and move forward very quickly. We want to get this out to the public and maybe keep it open for maybe a month or 2 or whatever it might be. I'm not sure. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first component is the application 2018-13, which is for licensed medical marijuana dispensaries. So the first proposal is to add text under the definition section of our zoning regulations, which would clearly define licensed medical marijuana dispensary, which would state a pharmacist licensed pursuant to Chapter 400J of the CGS, who the Department of Consumer Protection has licensed to acquire, possess, and distribute marijuana pursuant to sections 1 to 15, inclusive of an act concerning the palliative use of marijuana, as may be amended from time to time. The next proposed addition would be under the special use permit section of our regulations, which is 42.5.18, which would state licensed medical marijuana dispensary included under use line C-2.1 shall conform to the following special standards. Definition, see section 6, definitions, and general, which would state a medical marijuana dispensary shall be a minimum of 1,000 feet measured in a direct line from any and all property lines of the facility to the nearest property line of a school, church, or place used for religious worship, or a town-owned playground or park, or any child daycare facility. And B, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, the applicant shall provide a copy of a dispensary facility license issued under the authority of the Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Protection. Also proposed as part of the change would be updating our use chart. So we would have to add a line on, which would be C-2.1, licensed medical marijuana dispensary. And the proposed approved locations would be in the business zones, business 1, 2, and 3, but it would only be through a special use permit.
Which would require a public hearing.
Right, and notification of abutters.
Yep.
So that's for the dispensaries. Now looking at application 2018-14, it's being proposed to add a section under definitions, section 6, which would state 6.22.2, licensed medical marijuana producer, a person or organization that is licensed as a producer by the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection under section 10 of an act concerning the palliative use of marijuana, and whose purpose is to cultivate marijuana for palliative use and selling, delivering, transporting, or distributing such marijuana only to licensed dispensaries under sections 1 to 15, inclusive of the above act, as may be amended from time to time. Also under this application, the proposal is to add under the special use section, which is 42.5.19. It would state licensed medical marijuana production facilities included under use line C-2.2 shall conform to the following special standards. Definition, see section 6, definitions, and 2, general. A medical marijuana production facility shall be a minimum of 1,000 feet measured in a direct line from any and all property lines of the facility to the nearest property line of a school, church, or place used for religious worship, or a town-owned playground or park, or any child daycare facility. B, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, the applicant shall provide a copy of a production facility license issued under the authority of the Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Protection. And similarly, the use chart would have to be updated to add the line that would be C-2.2, licensed medical marijuana production facility, and this would permit through a special use permit only in industrial zones, industrial 1, 2, and 3, through a special use permit, production facilities.
Perfect.
Just make 2 more notes. I just want to let the public know we discussed this we've had several meetings where we discussed this and really vetted the language in our usual thorough fashion. And we also looked at other towns around Connecticut like ours and looked at their verbiage as well and their regulations for both.
To add with Trish's, I believe this whole process has been over a year, just working on these two for the commission, and going back and forth with the town attorney, and looking at the other towns that have similar aspects for this particular amendments. The other thing how Harry mentioned, this is medical, so it'd be if recreational or if hemp production, the state then allowed, that'd be separate from tonight on medical.
Right. So, I mean, the purpose of this is to gather from the public, so we'd like to get your input. Hopefully that's why you're here. So if you'd like to come up to the mic, state your name, your address, and comment either on, let us know which one or both you're commenting, so if there's any future discussions, we can separate those. Thank you.
Hi. I'm commenting on both. My name is Carol Regan, Sea Hill Road. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm speaking in opposition to the proposed medical marijuana amendments to the P&Z regulations and urge that you take a more restrictive approach. The youth in this town will be looking at what the local government does, and the message that you'll be sending to them is that marijuana is safe to use. It's important that we build a healthy community for our youth and not send the wrong message to them by allowing a medical marijuana dispensary or a production facility in town. Marijuana smoked in the 1960s was 3% THC, and today products contain up to 99% THC, which is the main intoxicating ingredient. A medical marijuana dispensary or production facility in town will send a message that marijuana is safe to use and desensitize North Branford kids to the risks of marijuana use. And we know that when perception of harm of a substance goes down, use increases. Many teens believe marijuana is safe and that it possesses no health risk, when in fact it's not the case. Marijuana possesses particularly significant health risks for teens, including neurological changes in the developing brain, which pose higher risks of addiction if abuse starts at a young age. Other risks include demotivation and damage to memory, as well as physiological impacts that can cause DWI risks for the user and other drivers and pedestrians. Our neighboring communities, Guilford and Clinton, successfully amended regulations in their communities and completely banned both dispensaries and growing facilities. And I also have a copy of the amendments for you if you'd like them. So pursuant to Connecticut Constitution, North Branford has a broad local authority to prohibit medical marijuana facilities under its general power to protect the health and welfare of its residents. Federal law is another reason why North Branford has the legal authority to ban production and sale of medical marijuana, and there are court decisions which have held that P&Z rules prohibiting adult bookstores and movie theaters are unconstitutional because such rules violate First Amendment protections for freedom of speech, and those cases would not be applicable to medical marijuana. In fact, federal law prohibits the production and sale of medical marijuana, and the state of Connecticut can't require North Branford to allow acts which violate federal law. Finally, and I think this is really important, is if a medical marijuana dispensary is allowed in North Branford and the state of Connecticut legalizes recreational marijuana, the dispensary would become a storefront for selling recreational marijuana. Last year's legislation specifically mentioned existing medical marijuana facilities as the first marijuana stores. The marijuana industry has prospered in selling marijuana-infused edibles that come in the form of cookies, candy, ice cream, sodas, and other sweet treats that are particularly appealing to children. Banning medical marijuana facilities from North Branford will not affect anyone who believes they have a medical need for marijuana, since a medical marijuana facility is located nearby in Branford. It's appropriate for the town of North Branford, acting through the Planning and Zoning Commission, to address this significant public health issue for our teens and to prohibit the presence of medical marijuana facilities in our town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Vincent Candelora, 405 Sea Hill Road. I'd like to also associate my remarks with Carol Regan's comments. One of the issues, and I appreciate the work that the Planning and Zoning has done on this, as you all know, it's been a hot topic in the state level for, well, really for 12 years. The concern I have right now is that, first off, when the regulations were passed for the medical piece, it does acknowledge the fact that towns aren't required to cite the location. So it's conscious of the fact that there may be communities that don't want to have these facilities. And I think looking at it in the context of the medical, it doesn't sound as noxious to the town of North Branford. However, in the context of our conversation right now at the state level, with the potential widespread legalization of marijuana, what potentially is going to happen is that program could be dovetailed into the medical program. And so that the definition of medical could be expanded at the regulatory level, which these text amendments reference. By referencing the state definitions, those state definitions may end up change and become more expansive. And then we would have to be coming back to try to put the genie back in the bottle to protect the town. I do like the comment that you guys are acting slowly, and I would just suggest that maybe over the next couple of months we start to see what the legislation looks like that might be rolled out at the state level. Because if it does get dovetailed into the medical program, I'm concerned that we would be opening up to allow for the dispensaries to be selling on that more broader, widespread basis. And you've probably seen it, but if you haven't, and I'd just like to give you all a copy, just what's happening in Massachusetts right now. They only have 2 dispensaries that have gone in, and it's had a devastating impact on those communities. The traffic wait is, over 4 hours. There's public urination, public smoking of marijuana in those streets, and the town has really no way to address it. The only thing that will alleviate it for Massachusetts is when other dispensaries open up. So I think for communities, if eventually we do see widespread legalization, we probably would want to be one of the last communities implementing it, I think from a quality of life standpoint, rather than being one of the first. And so that's why I would just really caution us in passing these underlying regs until we see what happens at the state level, because I do think that there is not a lot of good that can come out of citing any of these in Connecticut.
So it would be, you're saying temporarily, basically whether another moratorium, I mean, the whole idea right now to bring this in, so somebody cannot come in under the current regulations of retail and say, we're in, really our regulation doesn't say it's not allowed. Again,
Right.
that was a moratorium. Either use another moratorium for another year, which is possible, or outright prohibit it in our town, which I think that requires some town council input as well. I think
I would want to check with the town attorney. I'm
Yeah.
interested to see what Guilford and Clinton have done, just to share that with the commission. And
The prohibition takes a little bit of a different
Can I
animal
keep
because
this? Thank you.
whereas in the 70s when we saw pornography stores coming in, there was a requirement that towns cite them, they couldn't ban them because there was constitutional protections under the First Amendment. With marijuana at the federal level right now, it's still illicit, it's an illegal activity. So I'm not sure that towns would be prohibited from banning the activity. So if you want to do a moratorium, you can, I think, on that basis. I believe the state regulations acknowledge that sort of implicitly by saying the only way you could cite a dispensary or cite a grow facility is if the town accepts it. So if the town doesn't accept it, they can't come in and put a dispensary here.
You need to accept an application.
Correct. It would have to be approved through the local process. So right now, I think the Planning and Zoning Commission, as it stands, would still have the authority of whether or not to cite a facility. So absent regulations, I don't think we're harmed. And my concern right now, given what may happen in the next year, you might want to just delay action, at least through March and April to see what the state laws, if they even do go forward, what they look like.
I mean, because one of the things we do have in here is that we know that the regulations could be changing in the state, so we have the flexibility in there, but I mean, that's not, if they're gonna kind of ducktail some of the, potential, if they do pass to the medical, expand, like you said, expansion, that would be something we would not be quite, like I said, we would look to put a moratorium immediately on that as well.
Right, and here's a for instance, with the medical program, there's a state board that reviews what illnesses qualify for the treatment. And so if that state board ends up opening up qualifications to any illness and expands it to pain, that's effectively going to legalize marijuana for widespread sale. And that has been a backdoor way of proponents of legalization to try to have that happen, is let's expand the medical to address pain. So any level, so it would entitle anyone. And that's where we would have to be careful, because if you see those kind of changes, then North Branford would have these dispensaries that would be operating on a larger scale than we intended.
Yeah, because I mean, I think our only other option would be is, I mean, you mentioned, we would, if an applicant came in and submitted under one of our, B1, B2s, or whatever our guide, we would have to take the application. And once we take the application, I mean, unless there's a real, and it might not be, well, most of them don't include public hearings, so it'd be a site plan only. So let's say they come in with a site plan. Unless we can come up with, unless there's a, something glaring as far as, public safety or whatever, we could deny it, but we would just have, the town would get a lawsuit. So I just, I mean, that's what I'm saying, the moratorium, our options are, that's why we brought this up to the community,
Right.
so to let you, get the input. But our only, the only thing we could do would be to put another moratorium in, again, until we know more down the road.
Right, and that's what I would recommend that we do as a town. I know when this had happened, that the town was quick to act and create that moratorium. Eventually, we may have to amend our regulations to address it. I would just say, keeping the public hearing open a little bit longer, and contemplate the ability to do a moratorium. Because I think, given what's associated with it, and if you just look at articles, it's not really a good business use for communities. They are still cash businesses, so they cannot, they can't use credit. So even one of the dispensaries in Milford just had a robbery. If you speak with people in Branford, especially the fire department, the number of calls that they get from those dispensaries, because they have one in their communities, that's another added cost that they have. I mean, they have a full-time fire and EMS service, so it's different for them. But those issues, I think we do need to just be careful about. I'm just very concerned about the expansive definitions that we may be looking at down the road.
Yeah, because when we first started, after the moratorium was starting to come up, and it was when they said we weren't going recreational, but then recently, as of today, I think there was a discussion, was it in Bridgeport, New Haven?
Well, there's a press conference. I mean, there is a push at the state level again. It's come up.
So.
Governor Malloy was always against it.
Right.
Governor-elect Lamont is considering it.
Right.
But I will say that there is not confirmed votes in the legislature still to pass it. And having been somebody that's been on this issue for the last 6 years, the more research people do and the more they hear, they're very reluctant to legalize. And so I'm actually hopeful the legislature still continues to not push the button. The states that have legalized, all except one, have been through the right of referendum. So when legislatures are faced with the issue and they really dig down into the details, they're realizing how bad it is for the communities, and they're not going forward. And I would just say, and speaking for Carol a little bit, she works in Guilford, in the Guilford Youth and Family Services, and just has a lot of experience with the societal impacts of it. And as a state, we're already not going in the right direction with drug use and the perception that our children have of it. And I'm just concerned putting any of these type of facilities in our community it would send the wrong message to our youth. Especially if we're looking at edibles being introduced and gummy bears and the soda marketing that we have fought so hard to not allow in the medical program.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Would anybody else like to speak? Yeah, come up there. You just got to do your name and address again, I know.
Carol Regan, Seal Road. I just want to add that in Guilford, that was 2 years ago that process took place. So all those changes were put in place and completely banned. And I know, like I said, Clinton did the same thing. Madison was a little different. I think they have them in industrial zones. But in my opinion, if we can ban it before it becomes an issue, why not go that route for the health and safety of the town and especially the kids? So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? So we're going to continue both of these until our next meeting, which is January 3rd, 6:30 here. So we'll keep this open for a while. Thank you very much. Where's the agenda? Okay. So our next items are possible action on the public hearings we had tonight. So all three of them, the application 2018-17, special use permit for farm brewery, application 2018-13, text amendment for a medical marijuana dispensary.
Well, I would separate out the 18-17 and just reiterate that that public hearing was closed.
Oh, I was just gonna that's
just-
right, I'm sorry.
you know what I
Yep,
mean?
You're right, I forgot it was closed, yep. So application 2018-17, special use permit for farm brewery. The public hearing is closed, but we will continue any further action at our next meeting, which is January 3rd. Also, the two text amendments, 2018-13 and 14, medical marijuana dispensary and medical marijuana production facility. That public hearing will remain open and will continue through our next meeting on January 3rd. So now what we have is new business, application 2018-16, site plan.
So unfortunately, this applicant had to leave because they couldn't hang around because she actually had a dog at her house that she has to take care of. So I would say let's continue that to January 3rd.
Okay, so all in favor of continuing to January 3rd?
Aye.
That passes 4-0. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I'm not sure. The next one is application 2018, a site plan. Oh, this is the site plan on Route 80, right? We just redid the lot.
Actually, it's set back. It's an interior lot.
Yep, okay.
So we have someone here.
Okay.
So this is, the address is 1177 Foxton Road. I'll let the applicant's representative kind of go through it. I do have referrals, but I'll hold off on those.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Chuck Fisher, Squillo Engineering, 420 East Main Street, Branford. Here to represent VP Electric, 1177 Foxton Road. It's directly up the street here, right behind Dunkin' Donuts. It's lower than those properties, so you really wouldn't see it from Route 80. You'd have to drive up this long driveway over here to the right to get up to there's an existing building there now. What he'd like to do is he'd like to put an addition on the existing building here in dark orange. It's 50 by 100, 5,000 square feet total. And all the existing pavement that's here now, it is there, it exists. It's just going to be painted and striped for 19 parking spaces, which meets the current regulations, along with one handicap spot right here. A small amount of the pavement has to be saw cut to fit the building, and then the impervious surface created by the roof is going to be diverted over into here into 46 feet of leaching fields, which will handle 1 inch of rain per day. Other than that, there is an existing septic system that will handle the number of 6 people. The people expected to be working here in this business is 2, every now and then 3. So it doubles what they expect to have be needed. Other than that, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
So the space is already there, correct? Parking spaces?
The parks, he's gonna freshly paint them, I think.
Okay.
It's already
And there's not a
painted.
handicap spot, so he has to install the handicap spot, the line work, and a new sign.
So let me ask, so can you give us a little idea what the business is?
It's an electrical, it's gonna be an electrical storage facility.
Okay. And what does that entail?
There's conduit and switches and, PVC, galvanized, all kinds of stuff related to the residential and industrial electrician.
Okay.
He has vans and stuff like that all his employees take the vans home, and basically, they would stop in one by one throughout the day, or somebody would deliver the parts to their site. So all the trucks would never be there at one time. It would be random.
So then why the need for so many parking spaces?
It's just because of the regulations.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's why you, okay, all
Yep.
right, yep.
So this business is already here in the existing building?
There's about a 4,000 square foot building here in light orange, and the new building's just gonna be one of those, you see them going up everywhere, they're steel, kind of prefabricated, they put it together like Lincoln Logs.
And like, so the vans already go in and out, I'm assuming, and?
Yes,
So.
that will not increase, just the
It's the
storage
same
facility
business,
wants
but
to
just within
increase.
the storage facility.
Within this new storage facility, here in the corner, in this dashed line, it's all gonna be storage, except for that dashed line is gonna be 2 offices, a reception area, and a bathroom.
So, just so, I'm trying to figure out where the site is, so can you, what's behind?
I have no
What's,
idea.
yeah, so what's
Um,
directly behind you?
This is Dunkin' Donuts,
It's Dunkin' Donuts, not even right.
along Route 80, and this whole section where all this writing is, this is all Big Y.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
So, like I
gotcha.
said, this
Is it-
wouldn't be a site you'd recognize going
Nope.
by, because
The shaded,
contours,
is the shaded part in the left corner, is that the auto body shop?
yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Took me a little bit to.
I know, I still-
I'm
I-
drawing a blank of all this, so.
I've known this all the time, I don't see that.
Yeah, you
really.
can't really see it from the road. You'd have to drive back here on the driveway to see it. This is, the tops of these roofs are about even with the landscape out on the main drag.
Okay.
And the driveway is near the signs for, I think, the
Bobby's.
Metalworks and
Yeah.
Bobby's
Yeah,
Pizza.
yeah.
So it's much farther to the, what is
I gotta go
that?
back there one day.
The west.
Yeah, it's the driveway is, 3 or 4 properties over from the actual
So,
facility
and
to get back
just,
there.
the existing building's gonna stay?
Yes,
And you're just gonna, expand with this new this new,
steel structure.
yeah, okay.
And all our departments reviewed
Well, we're
it?
about to do
Oh,
that.
okay.
Please give Carrie a chance. I know it's getting late and you're getting a little punchy,
I am
but please
punchy.
give Carrie,
White
coffee.
punchy.
Please give her the respect that she's due.
The space, I really like space.
Okay, the zoning enforcement officer just talked about erosion and sedimentation controls must be maintained until the soil is stable with vegetation or other permanent control measures, which is what is proposed. The town engineer said the proposal includes stormwater storage and infiltration for the first inch of rainfall from the proposed building, which is an improvement of the sheet flow that currently takes place on the paved and process existing surface at the site. And there are no other engineering staff comments. Building official just asked that any plans that are submitted must show compliance with the building code in effect at the time of application. Fire marshal just said the applicant must follow all pertinent codes, and install a Knox box system. East Shore Health reviewed the application and recommended that it be approved. And that was, that was everything. The only question that I had was the type of lighting, and I talked with Jim Preddy from Prisco Engineering about that, because there's existing lighting that's on the building, but just to make sure any additional lighting be the full cutoff.
Yeah, the cutoff lighting covers,
Right.
yes.
Right.
With the current building, the one that's there now, what's it made of? Is it another steel building right next, the existing one, is that steel or?
I think it is a steel building. I haven't been up there.
Okay.
I've only seen pictures of it, and
Okay.
it's either a block or steel building.
Okay.
It's a typical
it's steel.
commercial building.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody have anything else?
So I drafted a motion, citing the plan that is before you, and then, suggested 5 of the standard conditions, which is that the application, the work has to be completed within 5 years of approval, that the town planner and engineer be notified at least 48 hours prior to the start of construction, No certificate of zoning compliance be issued until such time as all site work is completed or a bond for the remaining work is submitted and approved by the town engineer, which is acceptable to the town attorney. Sedimentation and erosion controls be in place and installed per the approved control plan. I don't know if the commission has any special conditions that you'd like to add.
No, it looks pretty straightforward.
So you could just read the numbers.
Yeah, exactly, because Carrie already did it.
I make a motion to approve application 2018-18 site development plan under section 23, schedule A, line C-11 for a 5,000 square foot addition to an existing building at 1177 Foxen Road, assessors map 18, lot 6, zone B1. Owner VP Development LLC, care of Victor P. I don't want to even pronounce, somebody pronounce the name. Pentrienda, all right. Applicant James Preddy, as described in the submitted application documents as noted below. Site plan application dated November 26, 2018. Property located at 1177 Foxen Road, North Branford, Connecticut. Site development plan, page 1 of 3 by Criscolo Engineering, LLC, dated October 4th, 2018. Property located at 1177 Foxen Road, North Branford, Connecticut. Erosion and sediment control, notes and details. Page 2 of 3 by Criscolo Engineering, LLC, dated October 4th, 2018. And property located at 1177 Foxen Road, North Branford, Connecticut. Office floor plan and building elevations. You guessed it, page 3 of 3 by Criscolo Engineering, LLC, dated October 30th. Not the 4th, October 30th, 2018, with the following standard conditions: 2, 4, 7, 9, and 10.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
This is under business, right?
Yes, business, B1.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes 4-0. Thank you for your patience
Thank you.
tonight. Next, you move that back. Next on the agenda, Carrie, is application 2018-19, 859 Forest Road.
Yes.
All right.
So.
Thank you for your patience, by the way. I know it's a long night, but.
You're trying to make it sound
This is also a site plan application. The property, as you mentioned, is 859 Forest Road. It's in the Northford Plaza. There had been a bank there previously, a frozen yogurt restaurant use. And now there's a proposal that that space be occupied by a child daycare facility. So since there is that change of use, I requested that they come before the Planning and Zoning Commission with their site plan and statement of use, just so that you could understand what they're proposing.
All right, do we have anything? Do you have a site plan, or?
Yeah, there's a statement of use. Here, I'll give it to you.
Okay. I got a lot of stuff in there, I just haven't. Okay.
Yep, sorry, and
All right.
here's, do you guys have these larger plans? No?
No.
Sorry.
Okay, share, Ron will share.
So I don't know if you just want to talk generally about your
Yeah, just, yeah.
your business and.
Just your name for the record.
Okay, my name is Carol Nicola. I'm the owner of Twin Lake Children's Center. So I already have the existing building on 5 Ardsley Avenue and just want to expand the center. So what I'd like to do is to take the new 859 Forest Road and make that into a preschool building. So we'll have children who are 3, 4, and 5 years old, and then my building that I have now will be for infants, I call them waddlers, 1-year-olds and toddlers. So it's basically an expansion. I'm considering putting in another playground, so I think that's one of the main things that you wanted me to discuss this evening. So on the plans, I believe there's 6 parking spaces there in the back of the bank.
Oh, okay, yep.
Yeah, where's the,
Do you want, I have a big copy that Carrie.
Where's the?
No, we have the copy you have.
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
Where's Forest Road?
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, here's Forest Road?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I got
so
it.
you have 6 in the back? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, yep. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, these are
What is it?
mine. Here.
So-
Here's just
Oh, okay.
oriented like that.
It's like this?
Forest, yep.
Okay.
Fish forest.
Okay, go ahead.
That's, okay. So I'd like to put the playground, there's a concrete area where there are some parking spaces. So the playground would take up, I think, maybe 4 of those spots. But the landlord is willing to block off, there's 2 entrances to that back area where there's parking.
Isn't that where the drive-through used to be when it was a bank?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So on both sides, there's an entrance where people can drive. Well, obviously, I wouldn't want people driving if there's, you know, the playground. So the landlord has already agreed we could have a barrier and we can add 2
Yeah.
spaces there if that's a concern, you know,
Okay.
to add for parking.
So where would the barrier be? You can come up here and so we have like a.
Because people park there now in the
So
driveway,
where,
so I agree. it should be a
here's the
barrier.
playground would go back here somewhere.
Correct. So instead of having this open where people can drive through,
Right.
we can put a barrier.
Yeah,
there.
100%.
Oh, okay.
And then we
Like
can
that
put
idea.
an extra space if that's a concern.
And then how about on this side, on this part through here?
That's really,
That's too close to the road.
either way, yeah. I mean, but parents could, if there's some spaces there, if parents, oh, he's also, we can barrier that off
Okay.
too and add parking space if that's a
Okay.
concern.
All
So
right.
that's.
What do you
know,
use for
something.
the barrier?
I could talk to Tony, you know, that's something that we can, whatever we need to do.
Because on the larger map, you have movable barrier. So it's something that you
This would
easily
be a
move or
concrete-
something,
no,
so
this would be a
so you
permanent-
need a piece of equipment to move it.
Correct.
Like a
Okay.
jersey barrier?
Yeah.
Or,
Yes,
you
I
know,
want
like-
something permanent so that
Okay.
we don't have any question of
Right.
a
Yeah,
car
the safety of the
accidentally
babies.
coming towards
Yep.
the playground.
Here's the
Yeah,
movable.
and there's the movable, a movable one there, but yeah, they
Just
both
do
say
that.
movable, but whatever case you want them permanent, yep,
Mhm.
yep.
So,
Is the, I don't know what's called, the overhang or where the drive-through was, is that staying there or is that coming
For now,
out?
it's staying there.
Okay.
I think he's been talking about possibly in the future
Taking it down?
but
Okay.
it's not really gonna bother
Yeah,
the
where the
center
play
or
area is or the
It doesn't
center.
affect at all the
Yep.
playground that would be going in. And it will be very aesthetically pleasing, so.
Yeah.
You know, I know that would be a
These
concern of the
parking
town.
spaces would go.
It's gonna be
Right.
very nice vinyl
Okay.
fencing.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's my business, I want
Right.
people to,
Yeah, be
you
attracted
know,
to
be
it.
attracted
Giovanni's is
to
right
it,
there.
for sure.
Yep. Yep.
And the Italian club is.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because that is the, in the design district.
Mhm.
So you take your kids to dance
Um,
after school and then the pizza.
But you're
Or
not
s-
adding on to the building at all, it's
Yeah.
really just the, and, the fencing.
You know Chi-Chi.
And how about, I know we talked about signage, but if you could just tell the commission too about
The
signage.
sign, I'm taking down the yogurt sign, and I'm
Mhm.
going to put up a nice sign that says Trinley Chicken Center.
I think that's great.
That's what we're going to celebrate.
Every time I drive by there, I'm just like, what's gonna become of that building?
Pretty excited.
So this is
Yeah,
exciting.
awesome.
So, my parents are looking forward to it as well, so.
Some parents will be looking forward because they go right from there to dance to Giovanni's,
Mhm.
get a haircut.
Nails.
Get a haircut, and nails.
Nails
One
salons
closet
right there
and
too.
Yeah, you know,
A lot.
You can get your pastries too.
The bite, yeah, the bakery.
yeah,
One-stop shopping. and
Exactly.
there you go.
traveling your kids
But
around.
So I will just point out, just, the design, because that is a design district for
Okay.
landscaping, if you do any landscaping, maybe the approval can just reference the design district,
Standards?
standards.
Mhm.
So just generally have a comment. But it talks about, foundation border or other planned landscaping shall be of evergreen varieties. Flowering or other deciduous plant materials shall be used for accent only. So, just going through our regulations here.
Why would they want pine trees?
I don't remember, I don't even know when they put that in.
I know,
What year,
these
2000?
78.
Yeah. okay.
Mm.
Right.
But,
Now, you're
plan-
gonna, there's gonna be some fencing in, right? I would assume.
Yeah, for the playground.
Around the playground?
The playground, yes,
Okay.
final fencing,
Okay.
yes. And I'll make sure everything looks good and appealing for
right.
the town.
Now, are you doing anything within the playground, like ripping up the concrete, putting anything in, or you're
I'm looking
that's
into
still in
that.
plans?
It will be something, I don't wanna do at this point mulch or anything that I have to worry about it going outside of the fence. I want it to stay nice and clean. So anything I do choose, I haven't made any firm decisions, but I will consider, you know, I'll make that
Yeah.
a priority to make sure that it's It's gonna look nice.
Is there any regulation on the kind of fence? that you can
It doesn't
use?
actually
Not in the
speak to
design
fences,
districts.
which is interesting,
Speaks to
because
the
you think that's what
evergreen,
you want.
not the fences.
Something to think about with our plan of conservation and development. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I like the barriers
Oh, wait, did you
being
put
there.
anything, is there a standard condition about
No.
the,
Do a change well. I forget.
or a condition for the, adhering to the,
Design district?
Yeah.
No.
You wanna write that in?
Yep.
Well, that'd be a special condition, right?
Yeah.
You wanna write that in and then?
So are you looking to put a page fence around this thing?
I'm sorry,
Are you looking to put a page fence or a decorative fence?
Vinyl, yeah, something like a vinyl fencing. So it's a decorative, more decorative.
Right, not a page fence. Page.
What is it?
The
it's a
wire.
Chain
Chain
Oh,
link.
the chain link, no, I'm not gonna do chain link.
Because they climb it. The kids
And I
climb
want
it.
it to look nice. We talked to Gilbert fencing a bit, and we were kind of talking about that.
For the barriers that you have here, I know you have like some gaps in there. Is it gonna be continuous or gaps so you can still walk there, like, heaven forbid, like, emergency crew could get back there rather than hopping or something? Or is it gonna be spaced like that, or is it just gonna be completely a barrier wall and all?
No, I think that as far as the fence going around, as.
No, the
What do
two
you-
markers that
The
you have, the
Jersey
barriers,
barriers.
the Jersey barriers and whatnot,
you might-
are you still gonna,
Barriers.
like, here you can see like there's like a walk path?
Mhm.
Or that's still depending whatever the barrier's gonna be, whatever you decide?
So, but the fence is gonna enclose the whole area, correct?
No.
Yes.
Over here,
Here.
not
Where's
here.
it? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right here, where this is
Yeah.
the
He's
fence
talking
area.
about
I'm talking about
Yeah.
the two barriers, just in
In there.
case like.
I
'cause
think there's
right-
gonna be
They should
spaces
be, yeah,
on the
that's why I
sides.
think they're movable, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, movable doesn't mean like they're
A car can
a
move.
cone. They're heavy.
Yeah, but like you
somebody
still
can
have like
move
the
it
path
through.
to get there, it's not just gonna be like the movables that's completely walled off.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
I just have compliance, do you wanna,
What?
I just wrote compliance. Application shall comply with.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe I should have run if you get a little punchy.
Yeah.
I think someone should have tried coffee pot for all of this.
Mhm.
That's the problem. You drink coffee all day, you crash. You don't drink coffee, you're good to go.
Yeah.
You know, you guys gotta just get on my health, get on my diet.
Plan.
Yeah. Garlic, hot peppers, and no coffee. I have one in the morning. I have to.
You can do all three.
No, you can't. No.
We'll
We'll have a conversation later. I think we're all set. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure, Alex would love to.
I knew that was coming. So Gary, I'm just gonna reference these ones down below.
And then read the special one, yeah?
And then a special one, okay. I motion to approve application, number 2018-19, site development plan under sections 23, Schedule A, line B-5.2, for a child daycare in an existing building that is approximately 2,000 square feet located on the western portion of the existing Norfolk Plaza with an existing parking lot at 859 Forest Road. Assessors map 62, lot 37-1, zone B2, owner Norfolk Plaza, realty applicant Carol Bacala. Thank you. As described, and submit application documents as noted below. Site plan application dated November 30th, 2018, and statement of use. Site plan 859 Forest Road, Norfolk, Connecticut, by Mathias and Young Engineers, Inc., dated November 30th, 2018, with the following standard conditions: 2, 18, 21, and special conditions 22. Just condition 22, Gary, you said?
Yep.
Condition 22 with Norfolk Town Design District, number 2. Oh, wait, sorry. Applicant shall comply with Norfolk Town Design District, number 2.
Thank you. Any discussion?
You need a second, right?
I'm sorry.
A second.
I jumped the gun.
Good.
I'm getting punchy.
Yeah.
There you go.
I second.
Yeah. I can calm out with my own faults. Enough people calm out for me.
Not a problem.
Any discussion?
What's the timeline?
I'm hoping right after the new year, probably February, if I can,
That quick?
February, March.
That quick?
For opening.
Yes. I'm open, that's it.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes 4-0. Thank you for your patience. Alright, we're
So,
moving.
can I ask something of the commission? In
Yeah.
thinking about it, the applicant for 1999 Foxton Road, I had mentioned that she had to leave.
Yeah.
It's similar to these other applications in that it's a site plan, it's straightforward. I have to say, I don't feel 100% comfortable, I don't feel comfortable representing her, but at the same time, I almost want to open it to have the
Oh, we can do
commission
that.
give the
Yeah,
opportunity
let's
to
do
look
that.
at it.
Yeah.
Because because
that-
we only meet once in
Yeah.
December.
Makes good idea. So let's go back to new business. We're gonna go back to application, where the heck is it?
2018-16.
Okay, yep, 2018-16, that's 1999 Foxton Road. All right.
Okay,
So let me fish it out here.
here you go, if you need it.
Yeah. All right.
So this is on Route 80, if you're familiar with Kelly Plaza, it's where Nada's had been.
Right.
Currently, Sandy's Deli is there, there's a dance studio there, tattoo parlor.
Oh, yeah, all the way up.
Yes. So if you're facing that plaza, on the far right-hand side on the corner of Ciro Road and Route 80, there's a standalone building.
Okay.
It's been vacant for at least 5 years. They're looking to reuse that building and put a canine domestic daycare and boarding facility for general and special needs dogs, cats, and small pets.
Special needs dogs.
So
What
she
does that
described to
mean?
me that she has a dog with cancer and it can't be left alone for extended periods of time, which is why she had to leave this evening. So she thought this could be a demand that needs to be filled, so people could drop their dogs off there during the day and, yeah. So in your packet, she has outlined her statement of use, which she states here she would have a sign made to conform with the pre-existing signage already on the property. The interior of the building is 1,080 square feet, which would allow for approximately 12 dogs. East Shore District Health Department, some of their concerns are hours of operation, so she states those would be Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., Saturday 8 to 5, Sunday 9 to 1 p.m.
Any overnight? Or is that what boarding
Yes.
means? Boarding means overnight?
Yes.
Okay.
She talks about that a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
So she talks about kind of the routine. There would be a bathroom break for the dogs. She also proposes a fenced-in area around the back of the building.
Yep.
And outdoor exercise area, like I said, enclosed with a 5-foot fence. Grooming would be available at a later date, possibly, and then overnight kenneling would be offered to our clientele. She said we will have a staff member on the premises whenever dogs are kenneled overnight for safety purposes. I'm not sure of the details of that, but she did outline the interior layout, and I met her on the property and actually walked around the building. And there's a little bit of standing water out there, and the area would need to be slightly regraded, which the town engineer also commented on, that would be possible. The whole property is within the 100-year flood zone, but putting in a little bit of fill to grade it off would not be a problem.
So let me ask you a question. So it's right next to the plaza though, right? Off into the right corner. That's what it says right here, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. What's further, and it butts up to Ciro Road?
Yes.
Okay. All right, in the plaza right now is a tattoo parlor.
So this is the
Yeah.
building that she would like to occupy.
Yep.
Then you have, I think the tattoo parlors on the end here are then the fireworks woman goes in around 4th of July.
Yeah.
Then it might be vacant.
I think it
And then
is.
there's a, like,
Church-ish?
yep.
Or, yeah.
Meeting location, something. Then if you go in, then Sandy's Deli, then it's vacant. It had been Featherly Ever After, but
Yep.
they're no longer there. And then I think the dance studio, and then where J Cakes was, that's vacant.
So there's some notes in here, AC installed, eventual webcams, Knox box system, smoke detector. So you have some referrals?
Yes.
Okay. Unless that was some notes you were taking. 'Cause you handed me this.
Oh, that's from the fire marshal.
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
Okay. you
So I have
some-
his separate comments.
Okay.
So the zoning enforcement officer said that we would need to know the height and exact location of the fencing. A zoning permit would be required if the fence exceeds 6 feet, but she's talking about 5 feet, so I think she'll be okay. The dumpster that's on the property would have to be screened, because it's not currently screened, and that he recommends that they would have to control any excessive barking when the dogs are outside. Town engineer said that the entire site is within the limits of the 100-year floodplain. However, since it is a pre-existing building with no significant improvements proposed, no flood permit is required. The applicant simply should be aware of this fact, and some minor grading and leveling may be necessary in the outside yard areas to ensure standing water does not occur. Fire marshal just said that the applicant must follow all state statutes for fire safety, fire prevention.
There's a lot of businesses around that, though, if there's excessive barking, or what's
True.
the closest?
True, the zoning
residence?
is, yes, that area, the closest residence is across Route 80.
And behind, like,
Across the-
another business?
Yes.
Okay, so
There's nothing going further back
parking's
behind
not
there, though.
terribly
That's all
impactful.
was.
No, it's all, Ciro Road is all zoned industrial and
Yeah.
all, there's no
Businesses,
homes there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna go by what you say here. I thought it said about number of dogs, was it? Or
12.
Yeah.
Well, I can't imagine the dogs are staying outside the whole time. They go in and out,
Right.
mostly inside.
But there's 12 of them, and they're gonna bark. the
Yeah.
dogs. You know, my dog, there's only one in the house and he barks.
Bark. But it's good to know, and good to help you know, there's just a lot
Well,
of
that and
business around there.
You said this is for dogs or animals with special needs.
Mm-hmm.
Or both, right?
Well, it could be both. It's not just for
No.
special needs animals.
Right.
But it's not just for dogs, too. I mean, it could be cats.
Yeah, there's cat crates here.
I mean, there's something that
Hang on.
says cat crates, medium and large dogs, so small dogs, special areas, they got them separated, so, I mean, it's not like if they have 12 dogs or cats, they're not gonna be all out, all out playing together.
Yeah.
And
So.
the regulations regarding number of dogs and all of that sanitation would obviously come through East Shore District Health.
Right.
So I wrote a condition in the draft motion for approval that would state that they would have to comply with all requirements of East Shore District Health, just to cover us.
So again, so what, behind the plaza and going back, what's back there?
So there's woods and then there's industrial land that's, there's stockpiled dirt, it's Triano's
Oh, okay.
earth
Yep, yep.
moving business.
So it's a long way to get to those first residents.
Mhm.
They're way back up on the hill.
The closest residence going to the south or to the southeast is off of West Pond. So that would like wind back around.
Right, I got you.
And yeah, because then you have Ciro Road, then you have Fowler Road. It's all business. The closest is on the other
dump
side.
trucks make a lot more noise than the dog
Exactly.
barking.
Well, I mean, here we have, I mean, who owns the building right now?
A woman named Shelley.
So it's not this person that.
No, she's a
gonna rent
tenant.
it.
Correct, right.
Any?
Yeah,
I had a question.
just a quick
Sure.
clarification
Mhm.
in that I realize it does say for canine, domestic, but the name of the thing is hooves.
Yes, that's someone else that asked me about that. No, it's a good catch. Right.
It's not
What's the name of it?
hoofs, hounds, and whiskers.
Right.
Now, and it says canine, and the name of the place is
Are we
hooves.
gonna do,
But
like,
we're gonna have like,
mini goats?
or little pigs, or, it says canine, not swine.
Right. So
Well, it could be
the
a
approval
pet.
says here, it's, the approval is based on the site plan application dated October
So it's
24th.
cats and dogs.
Statement, and this statement of use, so it would be based on that, but
Yeah, we
They
have-
have animals
I don't know
with
what the hooves include.
Hooves.
Hooves.
Camels.
So we're gonna act on this tonight without her, or
That's
we're
up
gonna
to
wait?
you. I just wanted this opportunity for you to at least hear it, and then if you're comfortable with it, to make a vote, or if not, continue.
So, I have a quick question on, the actual, the internal map. She references that there potentially might be overnight stay, and if there is, she'll have an employee or someone will be there. The only thing I see for personnel is the bathroom there for like overnight and everything else like that, so I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
if, I don't know, if it's, you're in the chair, or you're just looking at the animals as they sleep, or.
They're probably sleeping.
Yeah. But I don't see like any like
It's-
employee space or anything.
Yeah, there is.
Reception desk?
Well, you,
No, no,
you
no,
have
no.
your reception desk, you have
No,
the
no, no, no,
bathroom
no,
there,
no,
right?
no.
Oh, they have.
No, it says, right where it says gate where the fence is and
Mhm.
exit, right by it says, or futon.
Files or futon.
Yeah.
Oh, here.
Oh, over there, yes, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, good catch. I didn't see that.
Oh, my game. It's
Yeah,
late.
that was a good
I don't have my
catch.
game.
On the other hand, sometimes people work second and third shift.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, if you're not comfortable, if you're not comfortable approving it, we, you know.
I think I'm indifferent. Like, are there any cons that we should not? That we usually do, and especially for the public, we usually do approve it with the person here. Are there any negatives to approving it without the
No,
person?
we've done it with people not being here.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it
truly
wouldn't be the
indifferent.
first
I would
time.
go with what everybody kind of.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned doing it, but I want to make sure.
Well, and it's a site
really
plan,
shouldn't
so
be
if they meet
concerned.
the requirements, then
You know, and
it can be
And like I
Okay.
said, the place
If they
is-
meet our regs, and
Yeah.
she
Yeah, and
is.
the town heads.
And there's
request.
conditions
go.
regarding
Yeah.
East Shore
Conditions.
that she'll have to meet those. She still has to get numerous permits.
So the
for
conditions are going to be
building
put into the approval.
and motion, right?
I'm comfortable if everybody
good?
else is
I'm good.
comfortable.
I do, right?
Let's just take a quick peek at it before Ron reads it, right? It's just
No, Alex is gonna read it.
poor Alex. That's too bad.
I have no problem, Alex.
I know. You just want to do your favorite part afterwards.
Oh, am I hurting your feeling by going by you?
No, not at all.
Do we have any special conditions, right? We don't have any, right?
No.
There's nothing to put in this.
You just said the ones that each
Right.
Shore and a few others, whatever they.
The fence and the grading, that's all part of the conditions, right?
Right, well, I included the requirements of the town engineer as condition 17, and adherence to requirements of the zoning officer, and adherence to requirements of East Shore.
Were there
Real
sewers
quick.
on that,
Sorry?
were there sewers on 80?
No.
Well, East Shore would do the septic system anyway, right?
Exactly.
So,
And it's minimal usage, it's just a bathroom for the office.
Yeah, they're gonna be disposing the stuff other means.
They, dog.
Yeah, the
Don't
dog
ask
waste and
about
everything
when
would be
Don't-
yeah.
Right, well, and that's where the dumpster comes
Yeah, that was
into
true. I'll
play,
ask
because
Alex.
there is a dumpster on
gotta
the
add-
site, but it's not
Yeah.
screened, it's just in the parking lot, so
Okay.
that will help clean up the
Yeah.
appearance of the property.
Yeah, because
as well.
that's a condition that has to be screened.
And technically, it doesn't fall underneath that. It's separate. It's separate. If you want to go into the definition of that.
Even now.
I had a real quick question on the fence though. So just, you said 5 feet. If you go above 6 feet, you'd have to get a permit. Is that sufficient enough? Like I'm just saying it in general for all the potential breeds of dogs that she would have there.
I would, if
I'm assuming so, but I'm not. I don't know.
I'm gonna assume
Question.
that she's
Dog can't
putting
have
in
a
a fence that would keep all the dogs that she has in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think especially if they're like older or sick dogs, they're not most likely going to be jumping over.
Well, true, but, and then you say it could be regular dogs too as
True.
well.
True.
So.
I mean, I think it's fine, 5 feet.
Okay. Alright.
I mean, if you got a dog that can jump 6 feet, do you?
Yeah, no, I don't, but
Oh.
if I did, I would try, maybe be making money off of the dog.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's a pretty high jump.
I can't even jump 5 feet.
All right, I make a motion to approve application 2018-16, site development plan under section 23, Schedule A, line C-4.1 for a canine domestic daycare and boarding facility in an existing building that is approximately 1,080 square feet located on the southern portion of the existing plaza known as Kelly Plaza, with an existing parking and sign at 1999 Foxen Road, Assessors Map 27, Lot 39A, Zone B1, owner Shelley's Plaza LLC, applicant Carol Parmalee, as described in the submitted application documents as noted below. Site plan application dated October 24th, 2018, statement of use, site plan of interior of building, and site plan of parking lot with the following standard conditions: 2, 17, 18, and 21.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? I mean, sorry, any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes 4-0. All right. Good call on that, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next one is E24 referral, oh no, I'm sorry, 2018-8 request for now a 90-day extension, 67 Tucker Road.
So this is the 3-lot subdivision that
Yep.
was across, or on the Silly Putty Factory site.
Oh, okay, all right.
I was wondering what was happening.
Oh, I was on the wrong street, okay.
Wrong end.
I mean, the wrong
Yes.
end, yeah. Yep.
So, we haven't, this hasn't come before us. So, they haven't, this is their first extension that they're requesting, so I don't
Okay.
see any reason why. There's no reason not to grant it.
Okay, I move to grant a 90-day extension to recording the Mylar for 67 Tucket Road, North Branford, Connecticut. 3 lots and 2.02 plus or minus acre open space parcel, Assessor Map 7, Lot 1, R40 zone, owners RSMP LLC, applicant developer CW Landmark LLC, as approved under PZC 2018-8 on August 16th, 2018, which will now expire March 13th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes 4-0. All right, moving right on, next order of new business, 824 referral for the 2018-19 through 23-24 capital improvement plan. The most robust ever.
You did read it.
Of course I did.
Impressive. Fran would be proud. This was Fran, remember? Fran Leskovich always
Yeah.
said that we didn't get this early enough, and then we started getting it earlier and earlier. So, there is a memo before, or at the beginning of the capital improvements plan. Just kind of draw your attention to that, just talking about some of the items that are changed. It is, noted that welcome signs, there's $15,000 that was added.
The welcome signs are already up, aren't they?
They are, but not at all of the
Okay.
town entry locations, so
Okay.
we have 3 locations done.
So wait, okay, and so there was added into it, to this year's budget, to 15 grand?
Yes,
Not, okay, all right, I just want to make sure I was on the right,
Yes.
okay.
yes,
Okay.
right.
What's wrong with what's the Atwater lift?
Atwater lift is a handicap lift
Okay.
at
At the
the
library?
Atwater Library that
Okay.
needs repairs.
All right.
And just a change in the Board of Education truck. I will kind of as a side note say that I've been part of a subcommittee of the town council that is looking at town goals and planning. So part of that subcommittee's charge is to look at what the various department needs are and try and foresee it earlier rather than later, and take that into account in the budgeting process. So I feel like I've seen a lot of those items reflected in here. So
Did they used to do that like 15, 20 years ago?
Yes.
They normally did that, and then
yes,
for some reason they
and
stopped.
then it went away slowly, just stopped happening, and now we're trying to reinstate it again.
So, on the budget here, I mean, so on page 3, I had a couple questions, because so, under bond funds, 2019, 2020, I mean, let's start, 18, 19 this year, it's 0, right?
I don't
So-
know if I'm going to be able to answer this,
All
but
right,
go
so
ahead.
we go to 6 million, then we go to 61 million. So I just want to, do you know why the big
typo?
jump? No, I think it's maybe was it the high school?
Oh.
I mean, I don't even know if they plan for a high school. I mean, I didn't know if you, I mean, I'll dive more into it, but that was the first thing that caught my attention.
Maybe not, 'cause down there.
Let me see if I can find it.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
it.
60 million for the Board of Education. All right,
Okay.
all right. And then the 6 million would be, for 2019, 2020, it's under public safety. So I
Police.
don't know what that means.
Police station.
Police station?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
That's
all
on
right,
page 7.
All right. Because I didn't really dive into each individual
Yep,
numbers.
no, those are good questions.
Because in the past,
So
as you
those are all
know-
potentials.
Right. Because in the past, when we got it so late, I was the one that always would vote no.
Yes. Yep.
So
And
tonight,
Fran,
tonight,
right.
tonight might be a little bit different.
Okay.
Well, they give us the night before the meeting,
Yeah.
and we had to vote for it, and I was like, I would have to vote no. I didn't have time to read it and look at it. If you're looking for a referral, I need,
Exactly.
you know, you can't give it
So-
to me a minute before. But this is awesome that we're getting it much earlier, so everybody can look at it. and-
Yes.
Yeah. So is there anything that we really need to pay attention to that really impacts us? Where is our, like,
Well, I guess the quick answer is no.
Okay, that's
But
fine.
at the same time, I just want you to be aware of some of the, like, larger projects that are potentially in the pipeline, like new police station,
Yep.
or like page 10. In here is relocate town hall. So again, that's,
we already did that like 6 years ago, 7, 10 years ago?
it's time to move.
Okay.
You can move back to the old one.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but
So where
that's
is
just,
that? Page 10?
just a potential. And again, not to keep talking about the POCD, but that was one of the questions in there of what would people like to see, as far as a special project, maybe focusing on
Areas
a,
like Hint,
town campus, right.
Yeah, let's go to the elevator.
So when they say, I mean, what are they basing the 8 million on? Where it currently is, or completely moving it? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, I mean,
What, I think,
I'm fine.
I think completely moving it, I don't know what that,
I mean, rebuilding those.
I would say rebuilding, so based on
Okay.
the $6 million estimate for a new police station.
Yep.
8 million sounds about right.
Yeah.
Go out a few years, inflation, change of cost.
No, 8 million's for the town hall relocation. 6
Right,
million was for the police station.
That's what I'm saying though, so,
Okay.
so police station would be like today's dollars. If you push this out to relocate town hall, it would be similar sized building,
You gotcha, yep.
but a few years away.
For the police station, the council's still debating on what they're doing on all of that and what plan they're going for, or is it, did they decide on which of the, was it 4 options that they had at the time?
I believe that they took a vote this past Tuesday to approve that a study be done.
I was gonna say, I feel like.
Or not a
something-
study, but conceptual plans and drawings,
Okay.
I believe. But I'm not- I'm
Without a
not-
property though, just kind of like put something together, then look for a property.
Well, we have the land. The thinking is to keep it in the general location
Oh, yeah.
of
yeah.
where it is.
Yeah, okay.
Did they ever consider the idea, I didn't think it was in the previous ones, but helping save on some of that money? Because I know they wanted to get onto like Wallingford Electric. Doing anything like with Public Works and everything there, going through a route that way. Was that ever conceived in any of those options?
To move the building closer to Public Works or into the Wallingford territory?
Yeah, running a line from there, from Public Works underground to there to help save on money, because I know
I
that
don't
was a
know that
big.
they can't, I don't know that that would have to go through Wallingford Electric,
'Cause I think
whether or
that-
not they would approve that.
Yeah. But I didn't
I
know
don't
if they
know
ever
what their-
explored that,
Yeah.
because that'd save huge on their energy costs and
Yeah.
save huge on that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are we acting upon this tonight, or we review it and then act upon it later?
I would say act upon it tonight, so
Oh,
it's
alright.
just a favorable or unfavorable
Alright.
recommendation to town council. So I would recommend a favorable
Based on what?
referral, based on the amount of work that's gone into it, and I think honestly this year, there has been a lot of time put into it, and like I say, these meetings with the subcommittee and department heads listing out all of their priorities
Right.
over the next 5 to 10
And yeah,
years.
specifying, it looks pretty specific as well.
So this year, we adopted when does when does this end?
20.
I mean, what fiscal cycle are we on?
Right now,
Yeah, so the town adopted the 2017-18 budget. When does that
Yes.
officially end?
June 30th.
Next year? Yeah.
Yes.
2019.
Right.
Or so 2018-19, is that the current one right here?
18-19 is current.
Okay.
And that ends June 30th.
Why wouldn't that be adopted now? I'm not sure, I'm not following that. You see what I'm saying?
What page are you on?
2017,
Three?
I'm on, page 3. So 2017-18 was adopted. And then 18 and 19 is, recommended. So that's what I was asking. I was getting a little confused,
So
because
they
I
haven't
thought for
adopted
sure.
Because we're in 2018-19.
Right, so that's why I was, or what happens to 2017, I don't know. I was confused by the dates. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
so that's why I was just.
Well,
a
even
little-
on the more specific page 6, it says town council recommended funding 2018-19.
Right, so.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm kind of.
No, that's a
on
good
that.
question. I should know the answer to that.
Or was this just supposed to be done earlier than what it was?
No, no. Because they don't take up the budget until April,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So the only thing I'm thinking is that, because the year's still running, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. But that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
I mean, just not sure why it's like that.
I
Yeah,
think
well,
they're
those are
in the
questions.
current so if you look at page 5, well, hold on. Page 5 has total for 2017-2018 CIP requests, and then town council adopted funding.
Yeah.
High school
see.
says renovate as new.
Yeah,
Renew.
I'm still, whatever the case is. I'm not just sure how the dates work.
So Kara, do you know, did they ever finally finish the intermediate school? Fixing the roof problems, everything?
Yes, I believe the roof is fixed
Okay.
from the issues that they had, anyway. Maintenance obviously is ongoing.
Well, yeah.
Which one? The
The-
NBIS?
NBIS.
Because they kept having reoccurring costs and unexpected, and it was
Right.
supposed to be resolved.
Carrie, what's LED conversion, do you know? Is that just lights?
Yes.
Does this mean the lights?
LED lighting, yep.
Okay. Jerome. Yeah. I'm good. So the motion that needs to be
There you go.
is, okay, oh, look at that, she wrote it up for us. Perfect.
Who's up?
Yeah. I don't remember.
I think Alex is up.
I think so too. I'll just,
Okay.
it's only a
Don't worry,
couple lines.
there's,
You
I
can
have
go.
one to add. One
Okay,
more.
good. I got Alex.
I make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission report favorably on the town council's CGS, Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-24 referral on the fiscal year 2018-2019 through 2023-2024 capital improvement plan.
Oh, yeah, second.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
By Alex? I thought this is gonna fail.
No, I
Any-
was still checking
I
something.
don't think there's a timeline to second
Any
Robert's
discussion?
Rules of Orders, is there? No.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, seeing none. That passes 4-0. That was seconded by
Alex?
Alex. How do you spell your last name?
Just look at all the
Well,
papers
or
in
just
front of
turn it.
us.
I was gonna say,
Just turn it.
here you go.
There you go.
Oh, it's Alexander.
But I think it's
Is the
lowercase
F
e, capital F.
capitalized?
Yeah. What's that?
Is the F capitalized?
It is, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I do all capitals.
Oh, you mean Carrie didn't put that in there? You could get like a smaller Casey.
Yeah.
She did not.
I don't know if they needed it.
Oh,
My
thank you.
letters are bigger
Thank
than
you.
your letters.
All right, you gotta add something.
So
just-
yes, I have another
Mine's longer.
824 referral.
Okay.
So if someone could amend the agenda to add an 824 referral regarding
motion to
drainage
amend it.
easement.
I'm
I
sorry,
make
wait
a
minute.
motion to amend the
No, make to amend the agenda to the 824 referral.
I make a motion to amend the agenda to add an 824 referral.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing none? Amended?
Amended. Okay, I'm gonna pass these down. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a proposed drainage easement in favor of the town at 190 Totucket Road,
What does that mean in favor of the town?
meaning the drainage easement would be granted to the town across a private property owner's property.
Okay.
So you'll see, there's a memo here that's from the town engineer. I'll just read it. The owner developer of 190 Totucket Road, as part of the site development approval process for the property, agreed to provide the town a drainage easement and install drainage improvements within the easement and within Totucket Road. Public Works was provided the 15-inch drainage pipe within Totucket Road and a precast catch basin for the east side of Totucket Road, which the developer installed at his cost. The purpose was to eliminate a longstanding ponding situation in this section of Totucket Road, which existed because there was no outlet for stormwater in this section of Totucket Road. Recently installed drainage has successfully kept this section of Totucket Road dry during and after rainstorms. So this was before the town council last Tuesday, but they have to refer it to planning and zoning because it would be an easement again.
Where's 190?
For the town.
Yeah, what's?
It's north of Route 80. So if you're on Route 80, you take a right on Totucket Road. Do you remember Don Capelli's proposal for a new building? It was
Yeah.
built probably 3 years ago now. It's his building.
Oh, it's
And
kinda
the
cro-
drainage easement would be to the south of his building, but still on his property.
It's right across from Chase, right? The building's right across from that road. What's it called, Chase?
Oh, Wood Chase.
Wood Chase, that's right.
Yep,
Okay.
Wood Chase is
Yeah.
up a
All right,
little
gotcha.
bit, yes.
All right. All right.
So this will help get water off of wherever it's ponded.
Right, so it's already working, the drainage has already been installed. It's just that the town is
We
now
need the
asking
easement
for
to
an
get to
easement
it.
so that we can maintain it, because
Okay.
we'll be in charge of maintaining and operating that
All right.
drainage.
Is there a motion?
Alex.
And I thought I had draft, I thought I
Hey, you can
printed
give
out.
me that.
You get,
Well, there's this, it's
Hold
kind of
on,
on the
sorry.
bottom half of this
Yeah.
cover page.
Yeah, you got, you
Oh,
can,
just that.
you
Right
can wait,
here?
yeah. Just
You're
wait,
right,
you
so-
make a motion
yeah, I
to.
motion to approve,
Report favorably.
report favorably, the town council refer the proposed drainage easement over the property known as 190 Tucket Road to North Branford.
Cool.
Yeah,
You just want to report favorably
report favorably, okay.
to the town council, yeah.
I second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. Can you flip your nameplate back over?
I thought you had like photographic memory.
No. Not this time of night. I'm older. Once you hit like 50-something, you know, after 8:30, your memory goes.
Well, it'll be 70 again.
Yeah, really. Here you go, Karen.
Thank
All right.
you.
Plan of conservation update.
Let's postpone that too.
No, just saying, we've gotten really good success on the survey. Just hope that, you know, we can get a few more people, or many as we can.
Especially members of the Planning and Zoning Commission to take the survey.
Really?
She forgot to take on the snow day.
I am going to do it.
Do you have a card? Do you have the
I
card?
have many ways to.
No, do you have a card? No,
access it.
card. Do you have the
I
card?
do, I do.
You have the business card?
Yeah, that.
You sure?
Do you have the link in your email? I'm a procrastinator by trade.
Well, tomorrow is the last
motivates me to
day, so.
procrastinate.
So tomorrow's
good.
the last day.
Yes,
Yes.
December
okay.
7th.
Oh, my.
January 3rd. Is everybody gonna be here? Bill will be here.
Yes.
I should be here. Okay, so we'll all be here. And last thing of business, we are, in the packet was our schedule for next year.
It was?
Yeah.
It's kind of buried in there, but it's.
That could be the last sheet, Ron.
Harry, what are the days in April?
In January?
In April.
Oh.
4th and 18th. There you go. You can
There's
give
another
that to
copy
Ron.
if you need
You're
one.
not allowed to go on vacation.
What's I was looking for events. Easter weekend's the weekend after that, or 2 weekends after that?
Sometimes it's earlier here.
Oh, good
'Cause
question.
it's late this year.
So, the only thing I wanna ask is that we have our annual meeting on,
Easter's the 21st.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, we have our July meeting is the week after 4th of July, and the December meeting is the first week of December. Do we wanna move those around? I mean, we can leave them where they are, I'm just throwing it out there, it's the only two things we're gonna change, but, like, move from the July 11th to July 18th, or is that more of vacation season? So leave it where it is, and the same thing with December, do we wanna, since we have a meeting in November, instead of the first
We can
Thursday in
make it a
December,
week
I was
later in
thinking maybe the
December.
week later, the 12th, not
I
necessarily we
agree.
have to, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, I'm just throwing it out there, because, I mean,
It's still before most of the busy season with the holidays.
yeah,
It's
and we can
still
leave where it
early
is.
enough before people
I
go
say a
away.
week later.
Yeah.
That way it kind of splits the difference between November and January.
Yeah.
A little
Okay.
bit more evenly. I think July's,
Leave July where it is?
yeah, if people can't be here, they can't be here.
And worst comes to worst in one of these, I guess, due to weather and everything, if circumstances called for it.
You
I guess
could do a special meeting.
Yeah, special hearing could always happen too.
Special meeting, yeah.
How, oh,
So do we,
Do we have to
I mean,
approve
if we
this?
have to change it, we're okay to change it?
Yes.
The 12th? I mean, you guys wanna do the 12th? Ryan, you okay with that?
So-
yeah, I like
I mean, it's
the
next
12th.
2019, but,
Just so, whatever dates you approve
Right.
tonight, then we file that list of dates with the clerk, so
Yeah.
then that sets all of the meeting dates, so then all of those meetings are regular meetings. We can change them at any point, but then they become special meetings, so we can't change the agenda during
Right.
the meeting.
yep,
Yeah.
yep,
So I like December 12th.
okay. So, you wanna make a motion to approve the calendar with the revision?
And the July one we're happy with too, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the calendar with the revised change for December.
You wanna just say what that change was?
Yeah, for, instead of December 5th, it was changed to December 12th.
Is there a second?
2019.
I second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes 4-0.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
How can we make sure the notices go out at the right time?
Yes, I know.
I don't know if.
So I have a note to myself to make sure that our template that we share
Okay.
is updated, because I don't know if that's where the carryover came from, or if it was on their end.
Or do I dare ask,
Yep.
go back to 7 o'clock?
Yeah, the big question is, you know,
Because people keep asking that. I guess online too, sometimes people keep saying,
It says 7 o'clock.
yeah.
I mean, what's the advantage of 6:30?
Well, just we start earlier, so then we don't get out of here at 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
We're not changing back
Especially
to
during
7.
the warm
We're not
weather,
changing
I
back
like
to 7 now.
6:30.
I wanted to leave it at 7. Everybody wanted to go to 6:30. We're not going back, all right? That's it. you guys, no, we just gotta make sure we coordinate the, I mean, the
Well, the online
those
stuff
things
as
out,
well.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know, the one thing would be, I wish I asked Nancy where she got her information from. One
The
of
letter that was sent to her.
Oh.
The one that she
And
got
it,
in
and
the
it was,
mail.
I
Oh,
saw
okay, I
it,
got
I
you.
saw it.
All right.
It-
I got you. All right. Ron, you're up.
I mean, there's nothing else? No questions about world hunger or, is that on the agenda?
That's on next, that's
That's
on
next week?
That's
something
next
comes
week,
up
that's
in my
next week's
head.
agenda.
That being said, I motion we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Alex, turn your name around.
Any discussion on that? You sure no discussion?
My yawn
All in
says it
favor?
all.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none? We're